Oh my!
Uh-oh.
Neat.
Hey now, and we lost Benjamin for a second. We're
He's
back.
back.
Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to be debating the motion Dinosaurs Lived with Humans. And we have today Benjamin, if that's how you prefer to go on the internet, and Dr. Ian Chen. And why don't we let you guys introduce yourselves? Why don't we just go with Benjamin first, because you're on the left.
Well, thank you. So I'm Benjamin. I go by Benjamin. I don't really have anything to offer as far as social media goes, but I do enjoy conversations and debates, dialogues. So if anybody wants to reach out to me through a moderator to have a discussion, I strive to be an ambassador for Christ. I usually approach things through a biblical worldview, and I try to bring that into every debate because I think in almost every circumstance it's relevant. I think that's probably about it.
All right, Ian.
Cool. I've just got a a slide if I can share. Let me know if you can see it, guys. Can you see the slide?
There we go. Yep.
All right. Okay. So how do I do this? Yeah. Firstly, Snake, can I say that introduction? Is it me, or do you kind of feature very heavily in all the clips of all the debates that this channel has? So you may want to put some other debates, and I think this one would be a good one. You might want to come to that as well. Just a small suggestion. Anyway,
Yeah.
so just a quick introduction. That's not my wife. That's a picture of my wife. That's a joke I always say in the debate.
Beautiful.
Sounded
Look,
familiar.
oh, thank you. Yes, it is quite familiar. Look, so what I really wanted to kind of say is today's debate is really my own opinions. It's not the view of my employer, and I'm doing this debate on my own personal time. And the reason why I kind of say this is when I did my first debate with Nephilim P, he tried to get me fired, and by basically complaining to my employer. So I just want to make it clear that this debate is my view and my view only. I also do want to thank Benjamin White. I have to say he's restored my faith in young Earth creationists. The young Earth creationists that I have usually interacted with have been very rude. And usually what I then do is I kind of mock them mercilessly in debates and discussions. I will not be doing that today. This is going to be a serious debate. And I have to say Benjamin is a top kind of bloke. So a big thank you to you, Benjamin, for this debate or discussion. I'd also want to kind of say that I do have a PhD in biblical studies that I got from Rockville University. I'm actually not a doctor. Don't call me doctor. There are people that actually work hard and deserve their PhDs. I bought mine for $875, and it's just a running joke that I kind of have in these debates because we know of creationists that kind of like to call themselves doctors that are not really doctors. So just a running joke, and that's it. And there's my contact details if anyone wants to email me or my YouTube channel is really small. It's not really something I focus on, but it's kind of where I store my debates that I've done.
Amazing. All right. And yes, for anyone who doesn't know, if you're just tuning in, we are debating did dinosaurs live with humans? And cinematic psychology, did you have anything to say before we begin? You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Okay, it looks like
Too much champagne.
I think so.
That glass has gone down significantly since in the
It
past
was
few
full
minutes.
when she started, only a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
In the break room, Ian said that he's never seen me without a glass of wine, and I'm really offended by that because clearly this is not wine, this is champagne.
It's still grapes.
But it's not wine.
Dogs always produce dogs individuals. Grapes always produce wine and champagne.
All
Hard
right.
to argue with that.
No, it's not, but we'll have an entire, complete different debate about that, Ian, you and me. And I'm
Okay.
really excited. I'm familiar with both Ian and Ben. Both of them are really great guys, great competitors, and let's get started.
Well, I will say both myself and Cinematic have debated Benjamin on this very topic, so we will be attempting to be as neutral and objective as possible today. And like we said, we both really like Benjamin. So yeah, I'm hoping he smashes Ian today. Myself.
Oh
boy.
bias not much, huh?
I can honestly say I've never debated a doctor, so this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
You have a spare couple $100, Benjamin. You could also be a doctor as well.
I have heard in some circles, yes, but I will stick with my associates.
No, and that's probably better than my doctorate.
Would you like me to jump into my opening now?
Yes, you have the affirmative, so we'll start with you.
Great.
We're going to do up to 15 minutes opening.
Okay.
And
Could you
remember, are we going to allow POIs for some interaction in the openings?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
If there are no POIs, then please cut me off solid at 12. I really don't want to take that long. And
Okay.
yeah. So I'm hoping I can fit it in.
Yeah.
How
So
long is open discussion again?
40 minutes with we'll add in the extra time, unused time.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
we need
we'll
to.
concede the rebuttals. I think both Ian and I did, so we can definitely
Okay.
add that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 50 minutes, I think.
Okay.
54 minutes.
Well, let me say to everyone viewing before I jump in, I'm not feeling 100%, so I do apologize if I don't produce a perfect product. And I did beef up my slides a little bit on my PowerPoint and never did a dry run. So do leave some room for air in my presentation. Now, am I good to share my screen?
Yes.
Phenomenal. And I will do that. Slides, video file. Oh, let me just share screen. Share screen. Let me see. That looks like what I want. Let me know what you got. Am I sharing? Oh,
You got it now. Yep.
Sure am. Okay. Oh boy, this computer's going to struggle. Lots of pictures. All right. Did dinosaurs live with man? And I'm fine if my time's been going this whole time. Snake still cut me off at 12.
Oh, I just started.
Oh, okay. Well, great. I say yes. I do not say definitively. I say reasonably. I think this is something that needs to be discussed. Were dragons dinosaurs? Now, I have this slide because I am going to use dragons in part of my argument. But when I say dragons, I only mean dinosaurs in some cases. Certainly, not every dragon mentioned or depicted is reasonably a dinosaur. The reason I bring this up is because before 1841, the word dinosaur didn't exist. So what would you have called them? It's reasonable you would have called them a dragon. Post 1841, we now have dinosaurs, a subset of what were being called dragons. And I'm going to throw in a hypothetical. Let's call them wabachoos, a subset of what we call dinosaurs. Starting today, we're going to now have this classification of wabachoos. So now you can see this progression, this way of defining something that already existed in a way that distinguishes it from a greater group. I'm trying to move my little share screen pane around. Forgive me. Whoops, back to that. Now, following this logic, all wabachoos were called dinosaurs before the word wabachoo came along. Not all dinosaurs were wabachoos, but all dinosaurs were called dragons. Not all dragons were Wabachoos or dinosaurs, but all dinosaurs and Wabachoos were called dragons. This is similar to how, today, all cows are animals, but not all animals are cows. Jumping into my first reason of why I think dinosaurs reasonably lived with man is cross-culture consistency. Here's a list of a few um, countries and or cultures that all document dinosaurs in one way or another. And I don't think this channel does a podcast, so I'm not going to read them, but here they are. Everywhere from China, United States, Hungary, those are just some examples. Now I've broken them down. Everything in the red, generally warmer climates. Cold or blue, generally colder climates. I didn't circle China, United States, or Hungary because due to location or size, it's very hard to put them in a corner. Easily accessible large bodies of water. Japan all the way down to Greece. Limited access either due to geography or size. For example, Colorado and what's now the United States would have limited access to large lakes, seas, or oceans. And then natural, no access to large bodies of water. And this is, and I only went off of modern outlines. So they have no natural access to large bodies of water, Mongolia and Hungary. And this corroborates with modern science, and this is just one point of corroboration. I think I'm using the right word there. This map is major dinosaur fossil sites. They are all over the world in most of, I don't think it's actually all, but in most of the countries I listed. But keep in mind, this is only major fossil sites. There are minor fossil sites and one-off fossil sites that certainly aren't listed, and it would definitely light up the map more if we included them. Every continent here is noted, including Antarctica. Reason 2, dragons are within imagination. That is that we have dragons recorded in history, such as the salamander of Francis. It's an unfantastic in its appearance. It looks more like a large Komodo dragon with a longer neck. Not exactly, but it's reasonable. It's similar enough that it could have been baryonyx or a similar creature to a baryonyx. Now let's talk about dragons that are fantastic in appearance, such as the Germanic dragon on the right, the Chinese traditional dragon on the left. We look at these and we say they're just too big, they're too fantastic. It just doesn't make any sense. But I would offer, if you look at this anglerfish, I don't think it's the best looking fish in the world, but it does look pretty incredible. Pardon my dog barking in the background. These seahorses are much prettier than that other fish, and equally as fantastic. And these birds, while they're not quite as extraordinary, they are pretty beautiful. Definitely fantastic. And then if you take an idea like the platypus, he's got some pretty basic features: claws, a duckbill, and a beaver-like tail. So these aren't fantastic features, but they're all combined in a creature that, in a way, you wouldn't expect. So just sub these out for something that's a little more interesting looking, like any of the animals I've showed, which are definitely real, and that very well could be something that is or would have been considered a dragon. Reason 3, I think this one is much more compelling. I think the first reason and the third reason are more compelling than the second. The second was just me saying they're within imagination. They're not terribly unrealistic in all cases. Human records. First, I have the Sioux Indians. In my last debate, I butchered this name. I was a little Dunning-Kruger then. Still am now, but a little less. It could be, it could resemble a Ankylosaurus or something in the family of that. And we can discuss all this more. I'm only giving brief descriptions here so I can try to move through these slides pretty quickly. And that's the Sioux Indians were around from about 3,000 years ago to about the 17th century, I believe. Salamander Francis, Pliny, Aristotle, and Leonardo da Vinci all mentioned or depicted this creature. It was more talked about as a salamander that somehow had the ability to be fire resistant. And then Francis, I think in the 1500s, he took this on as his as the image that he wanted. And I thought for sure this was a picture of this thing breathing fire. Turns out it's either believed to have breathed water to extinguish fire or sucked in the fire. It was a protector of fire, not a producer. So interesting fun fact for that. Bishop Bell's brass behemoth. This is, I think, a far more reasonable piece of evidence, because in the 15th century, this was a bishop who explored, and when he died, his entire home he dedicated to be his tomb, and he has brass engravings of various different creatures that he encountered and saw in his exploration. And so these very much look like dinosaurs. The top is just a drawing that better shows what the brass used to look like before foot traffic wore the heads off of the depiction. Marco Polo's serpent, he was in the 1200s. He depicts a serpent that was fierce, large inside, had two short legs, dragged its belly, had eyes like I think it was a 4-penny loaf, 2-penny loaf, the smaller of a bread loaf. Either way, it's not snake eyes because they're small. You can ask Taylor, he knows about how snakes look. But they were very large eyes. And the thing was so powerful that whatever wanted to eat, humans, lions, everything was afraid of it. So he documented this in his explorations. He, I think, explored for about 20 years. The book of Job's behemoth, Job chapter 20, verses 15 through 24. There's a lot of controversy over this. Some would say it's a hippopotamus. The trouble is, if you look at the context of that book, it's written in Hebrew. It describes its tail swaying like a cedar. Some say, oh, well, the branch or leaf of a cedar. So, hippo tail, elephant tail, something small, but that doesn't fit the Hebrew context. One, cedars were one of the largest, strongest trees in the area, so you wouldn't say it to describe something small or wavy. And secondly, in addition to the note I just made, Hebrew, at least as far as biblical documentation goes, Hebrews would use a cedar as a sign of strength. They would use it as imagery for strength, longevity, standing firm. So they're not going to say a tiny little tail sways like a cedar or moves like a cedar. They're absolutely talking about the trunk of a tree that just doesn't fit a hippo or a rhino or an elephant. And then this, I think, I had a lot of fun looking into the, I guess it's Tapram Temple, about 1200 AD. I didn't know much about this. It came up in the last debate I was in with Snake and CP. And one of the arguments that Snake made, and I know he's not in this debate, but I'm just bringing it up because he mentioned it in the last one, was that all of these other images have leaves. The second one from the bottom, that's circled, that's the one that people claim is a stegosaurus. I think it's reasonable it's a stegosaurus or some kind of dinosaur. I blew up on the right here, the bottom image. It looks like this thing is on a singular leaf. So the argument is the stegosaurus, it's not a stegosaurus, it's a rhino something, it just has leaves, just like all these other images have leaves. Nothing special about that image. Well, this certainly doesn't have similar leaves. It looks like it has one large leaf. This next image, the one right above the stegosaurus, might have leaves too, but they certainly don't look like the stegosaurus leaves. The three above it, the uppermost one might have leaves. I'm going to compare that shortly to the stegosaurus, but the bottom two certainly don't. There's no leaves. So you can't say, oh, well, they just put leaves and everything. No, there's leaves around the perimeter of each image, but the images themselves definitely do not all contain leaves. Now here's an inflation of what seems to be a stegosaurus. There's at least two big differences between the leaves in the stegosaurus and the one just above it. For one, just above it, they're a lot more square and uniform. They look more like a cobblestone. It looks like they're in a building of some sort. The bottom could be wood, lumber, poles. The top could be bracing, roofing, something like that. So they're more uniform in how they look. And two, they curve to the upper rim of the image, whereas in the Stegosaurus image, they curve to the creature's body. And they also, I mentioned in the top one, they look uniform like stones. In the bottom one, they're a variety of shapes. Some look like triangles. The two in the back arch are certainly more squared, but they do not all look uniform. So I think it's more than just saying, well, there's leaves here. I think it's very reasonable that is a dinosaur being depicted. But again, it needs to be discussed. We're not looking at a significantly enhanced, beautiful photograph from modern days. This is something that is about 800 years old at this point and has been worn by weather and everything else.
1 minute left.
Great. Where are they now? for possibilities, they're exterminated out of fear. I think this is the least likely. We have things we fear today. We don't just kill like tigers and snakes. We are actually trying to keep them alive. Um, Overutilized, I think this is probable. We can get into that later. Overkilled for sport, also probable. And most probable, the three top ones combined with natural selection. I think they just were unable to compete, partnered with being overfarmed, hunted, or people being afraid of them. And this should conclude me. Let me find my stop sharing and stop sharing. Okay.
Excellent.
Are we good? Are we
Excellent.
back?
Yeah.
Great.
So we'll put 3 extra minutes in discussion since you only used 12. And Ian,
Yeah, I just
go
want to
ahead with
say,
your opening.
very logical. I do enjoy your presentations, Benjamin. I found it very logical and yeah, very interesting. Can you guys see my share? Is that coming through?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Sorry, that was the old slide. Let me flick ahead. So look, I just want to kind of say up front that I think I've got Benjamin on a little bit of a disadvantage because I did kind of see Benjamin's previous debate he had with the two hosts on this channel, and I did kind of respond to that a little bit as well. And Benjamin's obviously used a fairly similar kind of logical flow from that presentation. So I do apologize. I do have Benjamin a little bit at a disadvantage, but luckily I also included some additional slides where I try to guess what Benjamin would be saying. So in the background in Benjamin's presentation, I kind of shuffle things around. Okay, so dinosaurs are living with humans today. So I just kind of want to point out that last night I had fried dinosaur. So, the scientific consensus is that birds are descended from dinosaurs, specifically theropods. I won't go. I kind of go into the details of this, but if you kind of use your eyeball and track from the pigeon or the duck at the very bottom left, right to the small changes, you'll kind of see how that kind of looks like it's evolved from a theropod dinosaur. And if you don't believe me, just look at the cassowary. It's a native bird of New Guinea. It looks to me very similar to what a dinosaur would look like in the past. But for today, I accept that Benjamin does not agree that birds are dinosaurs. So I will be arguing from that basis, even though I believe that, if I were to answer this correctly, yes, dinosaurs are living with humans today. But I'll take Benjamin's definition. Like I said, I have the added advantage of having seen Benjamin's presentation of this previously, so he's in a little bit of a disadvantage. So I do apologize for that. But Benjamin brought up comparative mythologies. Here's some civilizations in the past: the ancient Greeks, the Celtics, the Indians, Papua New Guineas, that believed that the Earth was hollow. Here's another example of different countries: Albania, Greece, Romania, even African countries, Japan, Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, that believe in vampires. And also, here are other civilizations across different countries in Asia, Europe, Southeast Asia, even Australia, where I'm from, the Yowie, that believe in some sort of massive, hairy, ape-like kind of men. Do we believe that this is all true? Do we think that we're living in a hollow earth? Do we believe that vampires exist? Do we believe in giant ape men? Just because there are different civilizations or countries in the world that have mythologies on this. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Benjamin brought up some evidences that he believed was reasonable, that because we had different mythologies from different countries, that dinosaurs slash dragons existed, therefore dinosaurs existed. What I'm pointing out is that we've got different mythologies on different things like hollow earth and stuff. I don't think that's as strong, or to me, it's not reasonable evidence that dinosaurs did exist. Benjamin also talked about lack of exaggeration. So I kind of want to point out. So these are some of the pictures that Benjamin put up in his previous presentations. Basically saying that dinosaurs, they weren't very huge, they were smaller, and therefore it's reasonable to believe that they could have existed. But have a look at the two pictures on the left. To me, that looks very much like a crocodile. Doesn't look like a dinosaur to me. The way it's kind of drawn reminds me of a crocodile. The one in the middle, to me, could be a Komodo dragon. The one on the right could be a massive python or boa constrictor. So I've taken these pictures. These are real pictures. You can see the size of these creatures. Compared to a man, they are quite huge as well. So is it reasonable to believe that just because there's a lack of exaggeration in some of these pictures that dinosaurs existed? No, because they could actually be representations or depictions of real creatures that we know are living today, like a crocodile, Komodo dragon, or a python slash boa constrictor. Now, Benjamin also talked about, dinosaurs having fantastic or fantastic appearances. I just want to kind of draw your attention to some cave drawings that we have seen. So the one on the left is a cave drawing of a woolly mammoth, circa 25,000 BC. One in the middle is a woolly rhinoceros, circa 33,000 BC, and the one on the right, circa 20,000 BC, of a bull and a horse. Here are some examples of what creationists have put up as examples of dinosaurs. I just kind of want to point out that given that we have evidence that ancient humans can draw realistically, why are all the drawings or depictions of dinosaurs look so inaccurate and fantastical? So compared to the drawings that you're seeing on the top to what we kind of see are examples of dinosaurs, why couldn't they kind of draw dinosaurs realistically? And I also kind of want to point. And by the way, Benjamin, I liked your example of the Waibuchu. I will kind of point out that to me this was a kind of implicit acceptance that you believe in cladistics and phylogeny, given that you had that example around, not all dinosaurs are war. Is it Waibachus, and not all dragons are dinosaurs, etc. So um, you also mentioned, I think some, just based on that, just the definition of dragon. I just want to point out that the actual Chinese word for dragon doesn't actually mean dragon. That's an English word that kind of it's translated to, and there are connotations to the word dragons. When you say to somebody in English dragon, you think fire breathers and all that kind of stuff. In actual fact, the actual translation of dragon in Chinese means water serpent. So it's not a fire breathing flying dragon. You'll see depictions of Chinese dragons; they don't have wings. Okay, so I also want to there was, I think, some creationists mentioned that in the Chinese zodiac signs that there's the dragon's the only one that's a made up animal, therefore ergo it must be a true animal. Well, dragons are considered extremely lucky in Chinese culture, so all the other animals have characteristics associated with that. Dragons is associated with luck. If you're born a year of the dragon, you're considered lucky. All right, so I'm going to go through some of the popular examples that I want to kind of debunk. So this here is a very popular example of what's purported to be a sauropod dinosaur, North American Indian. Analysis has been done on these two drawings to basically show they're actually two separate drawings and mud stains on the rock. Looks like a sauropod dinosaur, but it's not a single drawing of one. You'll see the kind of what it kind of looks like on the right there. Here's another one, basically found from an exhibition, supposedly of a Edmontosaurus. I want to note that the creationist Taylor drew this picture of the Edmontosaurus so that it looked exactly like what he found in terms of the petroglyph. Here's what a real Edmontosaurus would look like. Its bones could not, it basically could not stand upright based on the way its bones was kind of done. This is really how it stood. What I kind of want to ask is, there are petroglyphs of very similar looking animals that are eagles that are in that area as well. So why would you think this would be an Edmontosaurus and not basically just another example of an eagle, where you can see on the left? Another example, and I'll kind of quickly go through this because Benjamin kind of talked about it. Yes, we do say that these are kind of leaves. It's supposed to be Stegosaurus. I just want to kind of show you where, in context. Basically, we're not talking about that little. The one in the middle is the one that Benjamin kind of talked about, but the entire temple is full of these leaves kind of drawings. If you kind of look at it in the context of that, it's no surprise that we think that those are actually leaves. But then forget the leaves. Look at the actual animal itself. Is it really Stegosaurus? Where are the spikes on its tail? Because that would be a huge part of what a Stegosaurus would have as well. Look at the head. It's got ears. Dinosaurs don't have ears. This looks like a mammal. It also the head is also too large compared to what a real Stegosaurus is. So there are a lot of inconsistencies with this being a Stegosaurus as well. So the question is it reasonable that this is a Stegosaurus? And I'm saying there is reasonable evidence that says that it's not as well. Another example, ecostones. I won't kind of go through this as well, just to kind of say that this is an example of what creationists will say is proof that dinosaurs live with humans. It's been debunked. The actual person that created this, the guy on the right, is a farmer. He basically admitted that it was a hoax. He said in an interview that making stones was easier than farming, and he demonstrated how he did it using knives, chisels, a dental drill, along with chicken poo to age the stone as well. And I know, CP, that chickens are a beautiful creature, but their poo are certainly not that beautiful at all. I'll skip to this, but suffice to say that some creationists argue that because we have seen human tracks with dinosaurs, that proves that they live together. But we have also conclusively shown that these are actually theropod tracks, three-toed, with erosion kind of filling in and making it look like it's a human foot track. The question really is, given that if you really do think there are human tracks, why is it when you follow the track, some of them look human, some of them look like three-toed dinosaur? It's as if, I think you kind of said this in your previous debate, Snake. It's as if they evolved mid-step from a dinosaur to human and back to human again. Here's another example that creationists like to say is proof. I'm not even going to mention this. This is just too stupid to kind of. I mean, you can tell it's a fake. It's clearly a fake. So I'm not even going to talk about that. But now Benjamin also talked about Marco Polo, and I've kind of highlighted the key points. Marco Polo said he saw, a serpent, 30 feet in length, 8 feet in girth, two short legs, etc. What does this describe to you? And the key thing is that they drag themselves and they live by the river. I mean, to me, it looks like a crocodile. It's a good description of a crocodile. Now, the Guinness Book of Records has the largest saltwater crocodile, 24 feet, not quite 30 feet, but exaggeration does happen. And I just kind of want to point out that this description doesn't have to necessarily describe a dinosaur; could very well describe a crocodile as well. I'll skip through the pterodactyl. That's a hoax. I'll skip through sauropod sightings as well, since Benjamin didn't talk about this. But here, Benjamin talked about this one as well. So this is Bishop's Bell Tomb. Now, the image actually came from a book by Vance Nelson, and he himself said he hired an artist to recreate the picture of the tomb. Someone actually went to the tomb to have a look at what that really looks like. So that picture on the left that Benjamin showed actually came from a book. This is what's on the tomb. Does that look like a dinosaur? Looks like a crocodile to me. So this is another example of, some, I guess, imagination done by a creationist as well. Here's another example of what's supposed to be a dinosaur. Looks like a blob to me. This is another one where it's supposed to show pterodon or pterodactyl. Further analysis, basically, of this kind of shows that it's this picture here. So it's not a pterodactyl. It's actually this picture. The picture on the left is what a creationist actually filled in to make look like a pterodactyl. So I want to kind of close to kind of say there are many sciences that disprove dinosaurs live with humans. There are a bunch of sciences that you can see on the left that proves that there is deep time, that the Earth is, older than 6,000 years old. But there's also a bunch of science that that we can use to date dinosaurs: anthropology, archaeology, genetics, etc. So the question really is, with all these sciences kind of proving not only is that the Earth is older than 4,000 or 6,000 years old, but that dinosaurs are actually dated at 65 million years ago and died out 65 million years ago, is it reasonable to believe that dinosaurs live with man besides chickens and birds? My answer would be no. So in summary, I've tried to show that similar mythologies across different cultures in the world does not make it true. If that's true, then we should believe in Hollow Earth, ape men, and vampires as well. I've also asked the valid question that there are drawings and sculptures of dinosaurs that are unrealistic. Why would they look so unrealistic compared to what we know dinosaurs look like today, when we have examples of ancient man drawing very ultra realistically? I've also tried to debunk some of the popular evidence that Benjamin has brought as well. And I've also tried to show that every science, either indirectly or directly, shows that dinosaurs did not live with humans, either by showing that the Earth is not 6,000 years old but much older, and also by the dating of dinosaur fossils itself. My question really is, given that we have reasonable explanations that debunks that dinosaurs are living with humans, and that these explanations are plausible and realistic, why would one conclude that magic is the better answer? And that concludes my presentation.
All right. And last chance to take that rebuttal if either of you guys want one. Any takers?
I'm good.
Okay. And guys, I was hoping you would use your POI opportunity. That's point of information.
I did want to use it one stage, but Benjamin was going so well, and I've never done a POI before, and I almost felt that it might intrude on Benjamin's actually flow, so that's why I didn't do it. But I wanted to kind of ask.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I've just it's new to me, and it's a great concept. It's just I'm not used to it, I guess. But I wanted to kind of use it at one point and ask whether he thought chickens were beautiful. But I ended up putting that in the chat instead.
No, you absolutely want to disrupt your opponent's flow. Remember, this is a sport. We treat debate as a sport on this channel. So we all like each other behind the stage, but we are competitors here. So please, POI.
I still like Benjamin, even in front of the stage. So I'll do my best to not like him, but it's going to be very difficult. Very
it
true.
is a new concept. I struggle with it as well when I debate my friend here. So
Um, I love that, and I think I have to go back to in my intro. I said my first goal is always to be an ambassador of Christ. However, or not however, and in complement to that, I think in Second Corinthians, Paul's talking about how the Jews are trying to remain so distinct from the Greeks, but he says uh, he essentially says he doesn't say it explicitly, but when you understand the context, he's saying, no, you need to be okay with being part of their culture in order to make an impact. You need to not reject their culture because their culture is not inherently bad. So I'm not used to it, just like Ian wasn't. I actually was so busy taking notes on all of Ian's points, which were pretty excellent, that I didn't. Um, but I didn't use any, I think, because I need to be careful not to be overly competitive. I think that's a trap, as Ian is aware, a lot of young Earth creationists fall into, and then they kind of unfortunately just turn into jerks and not good people to have a dialogue with. So I'm trying to avoid that stigma.
indeed,
Great
indeed.
job.
Well, we are trying to get people used to it. So just a reminder. And with that,
So does the
Yeah.
POI does that's only in the opening presentation? Like if I decide to use it, I mean you can't actually because it's a discussion. So I
Well,
think we
there's
need
really
to.
no need for an open discussion because you can just kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
talk
you're right.
freely.
or
But
or the rebuttals.
yeah, but Snake and I, so this is a bit of a tangent. Snake and I are going to do a debate at a certain point to kind of set the precedent where we are assigned a
Excellent.
side. So we don't even
Excellent.
believe what we're saying. We do think that it is important for people to view debate as a sport so that people can learn to assess debaters' skills rather than just automatically saying, oh, I agree with this person, so they're better. And that's what we try to do as well, because we're trying to kind of cultivate a culture where we view people's abilities to argue, their logic, their persuasion, and not necessarily just their standpoint, so that we can create a more open minded culture. So that's why we want to push for competition. It's not just because we want to be jerks, it's because we want people to look at your abilities and not your worldview so that we can be more open minded. Does that make sense, guys?
I'd love to debate both of you on why viewing it as competition is only somewhat beneficial and could be negative. But that's a debate for another time.
I
Debating
can see that.
debates. I like
Yeah,
it.
I think it's great. Uh, just mentioning James's platform on Modern Day Debate, I've had a debate in my mind over whether or not having a truly neutral platform is fully beneficial or not, goods and bads. But I'm a contrarian, I think, by nature, as my pastor once said. So I usually debate everything in the background.
All right.
Well,
Well,
Um,
we'll
Benjamin, I'm
get you
hoping
set
that
up
you
with
enjoy
a
this
random
debate so
topic.
much.
great. So sorry. So Ian, did you have something to open? I think like we cut you off.
Um, well, I had a couple of things where I presented some rebuttals to what you kind of said. So maybe as a way forward, you could maybe pick one of those and kind of see whether I'm right or you're right or whatnot, or maybe
Yeah.
we can do
Real
it that way.
quick.
Or
Oh,
yeah,
Real quick. We're just gonna do. Should we go for an even 60 minutes?
let's see.
sh-
Yes. Because I'm not feeling terribly well, 10 is a hard cutoff for me. So 60 minutes is fine.
Okay. And you guys can wrap it up whenever you both
Oh,
mutually feel like
wait.
it as well.
Do you do a Q&A here?
Yeah, and you don't have to stay around for that if it doesn't work for you or
Okay. Well, then let's try
we
to
get
keep it to
scored,
50
Benjamin.
minutes. I would
Don't
like
forget, we
to.
get scored as well.
Yeah.
we
No,
can
that's
bump it
fine.
back down to like 40, 45 minutes too if you want.
Let's do 50. Give 10 extra minutes to
Okay.
Q&A on my behalf. Thank you for being patient with me.
Yeah.
So, jumping into it, Ian, I noticed at least with vampires and with Hollow Earth, all of the countries that you named are at least within one continent or very close to being one continent. Sasquatch is a little better. I don't think he's on every continent, and I certainly don't think he's on nearly the amount of countries and cultures um, that dragons are. One thing I showed in my first reason, and I think it may be the strongest reason, is that it's not due to culture, it's not due to geography, and it's not due to climate. It's all over the world, all over human time, all over the weather
Yep.
spectrum.
Mhm. No, that you did mention that, and that is a good point. What I guess I'll say is that your examples of dinosaurs and dragons, there are very close analogs to living creatures today. I mean, there's none for Hollow Earth or vampires or ape men. Maybe a little for ape men if you saw a gorilla, for example. But we know that the crocodiles exist. We know that Komodo dragons and big, large snakes exist. So to me, it's reasonable to assume that it's not that large a stretch for a person to imagine a more larger or fantastical creature like a dinosaur or dragon. Whereas obviously with the Hollow Earth, you're basing that on guesses. There's nothing, there's no examples of that. So yes, I agree with you that culture, etc., may not differentiate, but there are analogs that you can compare. And I showed some examples of pictures that you said might be a dinosaur that to me looks very close to a crocodile. Does that kind of make sense, Benjamin?
Yeah, so let me flesh this out a little bit because I think I can actually push back on that alligator point. If alligators had gone extinct 500 years ago, before we could really take good pictures or document them on Discovery Channel, uh, and then we found paintings of them, we would say, oh, well, that just kind of looks like a Komodo dragon or a really large iguana, whatever this thing called an alligator. I'm using alligator in lieu of dinosaur. It probably never actually existed because we have things that look similar to alligators today, like Komodo dragons. And so I don't disagree with your logic, but I don't think it's unreasonable to go with your logic to my point of view, and to say that it's reasonable that dinosaurs were similar to alligators or similar to other things living today. And so they could look similar, but we could also have something that isn't an alligator that did go extinct. And we're saying, well, we've got an alligator. It's probably that because it looks like it. Um, but it
I
doesn't
see
have to
I
be.
see your point, Benjamin, and like I said, it's a good point. But I think the one piece of evidence that you may not be considering is, would we have a fossil of an alligator? All right. So we don't have fossils of these dinosaurs the way it's been depicted, like one with wings, for example, with four legs and wings. We have no creature that has four limbs and wings. And I'm not talking about insects, talking about reptiles or mammals, etc. Nothing like that exists. Whereas you're from what you to kind of describe, assuming an alligator did kind of die out 500 years ago, I assume we would be able to find fossils of the alligator and reconstruct what the alligator will look like and then compare it to the depictions of an alligator from 500 years ago, and I think you would probably see it similar. I think the one piece of evidence that you may not be considering is, where are these fossils that show the drawings or carvings of what those dinosaurs or dragons supposedly look like? Because they're too fantastic, and we do not have fossils that look like that.
I think that's an excellent point. Um, However, I do want to pose to you the question: what percentage of extinct animals, creatures, do you believe we have fossils for?
And that hey, this is going to be the most politest debate I've ever done, Snake. Like I said, Benjamin's such
Phenomenal.
a top bloke. Normally I would be just ragging on you already, but no. So look, I think that
Thank
that
you.
is an actual
Thank you.
good point. That is an actual good point. I think the estimates are we've I think like it's 1% of 1% of all creatures that have ever lived in the entirety of life on Earth has ever been fossilized. So it is a very small percentage. But Benjamin, I can only go with what data we have today. I can't talk about what ifs or things that have not been found yet, because to me that's what I kind of call God of the gaps. You're basically saying we don't know it yet, but maybe we'll find it later, and therefore I'll hang my hat on that evidence that we'll find it later. Whereas I'm kind of saying this is the fossils that we have today, and from what we also understand of evolution, there is no animal that has four limbs and wings. If you look at a bird, the forearms of a reptile or the theropod became the wings. So you get the two legs and you get the wings, but you're seeing depictions of animals with, a four legs and hind legs and wings as well. So that anatomy is even impossible based on what we kind of know. So even though we may not have found a fossil of that, we're pretty close to being sure that no fossils like that will exist, because that doesn't fit into phylogeny of the animals as we know it based on evolutionary understanding. Does that make sense, Benjamin?
It does. However, I would kind of do a reverse God of the gaps and say that there's the 1% of 1% is a huge gap. And that's a gap that you're willing to call God. You're not calling it God, but just, to be punchy, you're willing to call that gap God, but you're not willing to call a gap which has different historical evidences. You're not willing to call that gap valid. Um, so it looks like a little bit of picking and choosing which God of the gaps we're willing to accept and not
Yeah.
accept.
I'm gonna kind of rebut that by kind of saying your name that you've come onto this debate is reasonable. So I was trying to say, what's the most reasonable of the evidences. So when I'm so the and the beauty about science, Benjamin, is that if we have data that kind of shows that it's wrong, we'll change it. So I know Ken Hovind likes to kind of say, in the past we would bloodlet, and that would be the kind of the top level of knowledge that we have around medicine. You would kind of, let your blood or cut your blood and let it drip or whatnot. But obviously, as we know more, we realize that that's not the right thing to do, and science kind of evolves. So hey, if there's evidences that kind of show, and it's got to be, to me, convincing evidence that kind of shows that there are dragons slash dinosaurs that live with men, then yes, I would change my mind. So to me, it's not God of the gaps. It's I look at the evidence we have, and that's all I can do, Benjamin. I can only look at the evidence that's there. I can't imagine evidences that has not been found yet. And
Hmm.
and if evidences that have been found yet convinces me differently, I will change my mind. So I guess two-part to answer your question. I look at the evidence today, understanding that there could be things that come in the future that could change my mind. I'll have to wait for those discoveries. And I so I missed your second point, so I'm probably not answering your question kind of fully.
That's okay.
I'll kind of stop there
So
anyway.
in the last debate, I contributed to kind of staying on one point for too long. So I'm going to make one last kind of point on this topic we're on, and you can
Yep,
offer one last rebut, I suppose. And then, regardless of what you say, we'll move on. So that's kind of to
sounds
your
good.
advantage. Um, but as far as evidences go, given that I kind of rebutted your rebut to my first point of it's not cultural, it's not geographical, it's not based on climate. And that agrees with science. We've got dinosaur fossils on every continent. We've got dragons or cave paintings on every continent in every culture. Um, those two things seem to work together. So I'm not saying that it's going to wipe the floor, like you need to change your mind, but I am saying that makes it reasonable. And I think that that is one area, and it might be the only one, but that is one area where modern science does seem to agree with historical record. And I'm going to give
Yep.
the last word on this to you, and then I can go to another point, or you can go to another point. But I think we should.
Yeah, no, let me. I'll have a quick last word, and I'm very happy for you to kind of take the lead, Benjamin. That's quite okay with me. I will kind of point out that every time you kind of said rebut, I couldn't help thinking of SWE's comment about how she's, I think, the mistress of buttocks or something. So anyway, yeah. So what will I say to that? I think where we disagree is the interpretation of the data, Benjamin. So
Hmm.
I think it's just the spectrum, right? So for me, I'm probably a little bit more skeptical of a link between what I see is purported to be a dinosaur and compared to what you kind of see. So I think it's that spectrum that we kind of sit. I'm kind of here and you're kind of here as well. For example, we look at that is it Nom Pen, but that Cambodian Stegosaurus. To me,
Yeah.
I don't see a Stegosaurus. I see a lot of leaves, carvings, because when I look at the multiple temples as a whole, there's a lot of these little leaf kind of carvings. I hear what you're saying around some of these are not exactly in the same shape, and here are some examples where it's not on the animal, etc. I hear that, but I look at it in entirety and I kind of see, well, these leaf shapes are everywhere. So is it reasonable to think that it's just a decoration? I've obviously come come down as yes, it is from what I can see. You've come out the other side as well. So I think our disagreement is on the spectrum of how we interpret the evidence, right? So for me, as I was trying to point out in the very last slide, is we have objective type evidence as well. So not just a I'm looking at something or Benjamin's looking at something. We have objective scientific evidence that kind of show that dinosaurs were 65 million years ago, that they died out in an asteroid or meteor kind of strike, potentially with Deccan traps lava as etc. as a contributing factor. We have archaeological evidence and other types of science that kind of show that humans live in this particular defined time frame, which is not the same time frame as a dinosaur, and we have scientific objective evidence that shows the Earth is kind of old. So, so whilst I think me and you interpret the evidence slightly differently and on two different sides of the spectrum, I think if we can agree that there are sciences out there that essentially are objective, that that will kind of say that dinosaurs live in a totally different time period than what humans did, ergo they did not live together. Does that kind of make sense, Benjamin?
Yes. If I don't want to go back into the debate, but let me end with a question to you. And I'm sorry, I'm
Yep.
going back in, kind of
No, no,
going against what I
go for
said.
it, Benjamin. Go for it.
If you keep saying objective as if it's set in stone, but earlier you did say science will change if it's proven wrong.
Mhm.
So it's objective for now, unless it gets proven wrong. It may never. You may be totally right, completely right, but in the event it gets proven wrong, it's no longer objective. So it seems that you are coming into this with the presupposition that what you know about science is objective. And so the point that I'm bringing up is that will by default convince you internally that the points that I'm bringing up, such as the Stegosaurus example, because I do think from what I showed, it's those leaves just aren't the same. So I don't think it's terribly reasonable. Uh, it may be by default making you say, well, that's just not the case. So I'm going to disagree with it, even though I made a fairly logical point there. I do agree there is a difference in interpretation of the data. And so I'm happy to leave it there. But I just wanted to see what you thought about how presuppositions might affect what we view as totally objective.
Yeah. So my point to that would be that science can never be proven 100%, but we can get as close to it
Hmm.
as possible. So, for example, I don't know what 2,000 years ago, everyone thought the world was flat. Some experiments were done by some Greek philosopher that kind of showed it might be curved. Actually, that's not probably not a good example. Speed of light, that's another example. We assume the speed of light was a particular speed. As we get more experiments and more data, we're honing in on exactly what that speed is. So what I'm saying is things like the age of the Earth, things like did dinosaurs, are they dragons, etc. Did they live with man? I'm moving down the path of they did not, because I have hundreds and hundreds, if not millions, of data points that kind of show this. And yes, I cannot definitively say it does not happen that dinosaurs did live with man. What I will say is, with the preponderance of evidence, the likelihood of me being wrong is so vanishingly small now that I will accept that dinosaurs. So you get what I mean? Like science advances, but it hones into the truth. Right. So over
Yes.
time, you're going to
Yes.
get more and more and more to truth. And you know what? If we suddenly discover the Earth is flat, I mean, it's got to be some massive bit of evidence there, right? But all the sciences and data, the points that we know now shows its curve, and it's now a matter of the size of the curve and all that kind of stuff. We know it's curved, and I can definitively tell you that the Earth is round and it's a sphere and it's not flat. I can tell you that. Can I be 100% positive? No, because science can never be 100% positive. Will you be able to show me evidence that the Earth is not a curve or a sphere? No, I don't think you will. And that's where
Mm.
I think, I make a presupposition. It's based on what all the evidence and the experts and the consensus are telling me. And I trust that science will hone into the truth eventually. And we're at the point where I think evolution, we're at the very tip of the truth. I don't think you'll ever be able to disprove evolution is not true, for example, and therefore leading back to, dinosaurs and time frames and, not living with man and all that kind of stuff. But because we're now at the point where we're now arguing on the tip of the truth and trying to discover that part of it, but we already know evolution is true. Does that kind of make sense, Benjamin?
Yes, your line of thinking makes sense. This isn't a debate on evolution, but
Yeah. I
evolution
use
is
that example. I try to use flat
yes.
Earth as well, just to kind of throw in something new in the mix as well.
Listen, if they prove the Earth is flat, I
Yeah.
I'm I don't know if it's disingenuous to say, but
You can
there
you
might be
can come to
riots if they
Australia
if
and
they
jump
prove
off
the
it
Earth
and,
is
and
flat.
just fly off the edge of the Earth, then if that's true.
Yes, it's going to be crazy if the Earth is proven flat. But I'm a glober. I
Yeah.
believe it's a globe. Well, I appreciate that perspective, and I think that it is important that we both have the ability to come to a place like this and share our perspectives confidently. And I do think we have to operate on conviction. So I think based on everything you've shared, you have a strong argument. And I think you need to stick with it unless you are truly, genuinely convinced otherwise.
Snake and CP, please take note when you score me. That because I think one of the scoring, Benjamin, is how strongly you can kind of be convinced with your own argument. So you've heard from my interlocutor himself that he believes that it's quite strong. So hopefully you guys can consider that in the scoring when you kind of score me. Okay, just joking.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
All right, Benjamin, where do you want to take this discussion next?
I like Marco Polo.
Yep. Shoot.
Let's go to him. Oh, actually, before we do that, Bishop Bell, what was your point with Bishop Bell? Because
Bishop Bell. So that my point was that image that everyone shows is actually
yes,
came from a book by Vance Nelson, and he himself said that because he visited the tomb and he obviously didn't take photos of the tomb. He got artists to render drawings of what he drew and what that looked like. So that picture is actually not a picture of what was actually in Bishop Bell's tomb. It's actually a picture of an artist's rendition of what Vance Nelson said was in that, and he put that picture in his book. But then somebody went to the tomb itself to take a real picture of what it was, and it wasn't a brontosaurus or brachiosaurus or whatever it was. It was actually a crocodile.
so uh, now maybe you can link, maybe you can show those sources, but I looked into Bishop Bell pretty heavily, and it looks like the two Brontosaurus or whatever they are linking necks and the crocodile depiction, it looks like those are both established separate photos that both are currently there or were currently there, whatever the situation is. So I'm just pushing back on that because I think those are two different images. I do not think those are the same.
Okay. Look, I won't debate you on that one because I basically pulled these slides last night, and you
Mm,
could very well be right. I will send you the links that I have, so we can take that one off.
sure. Well,
Ben's a
welcome to my
global.
world.
I can trust him.
You heard that, Snake and CB. He said I can take that one. I'm just following suit. I'm picking on you because you did that
No,
first.
no, no. Go for it. Go for
Um,
it. It's supposed to be fun.
the last debate I had with Snake and CP, I only prepped for 3 days total, so I was very cautious of how Dunning-Krugered I might be. And I actually took out my second reason, which you pointed out from my last debate of lack of exaggeration, because
Yeah.
I was fairly wrong on that. I didn't want to bring that into this debate because I wasn't confident. Okay, so Bishop Bell covered. Into Marco Polo.
Hmm.
I mentioned, here's one thing to Marco Polo's credit in his describing a beast that I think was a reptilian creature that I think was a little more, uh, a little less crocodile than you had led on. Um, but the serpent of Francis, or the salamander of Francis, one of the ones I pointed out, there was a pope or a bishop who had a garment that he claimed was made of this serpent's skin. It was a real garment. Guy really owned it. People really saw it. It really was fire resistant. Um, Marco Polo was so highly skeptical of that he actually, I believe now, wrote the consensus opinion, which is it was made out of asbestos, which apparently in that area or whatnot was able to be farmed or however they did it. And so his robe was made out of asbestos. So that's just to say, in Marco Polo's favor, he seemed himself to be skeptical of things that were fantastic or what we could call dinosaur-like, dragon-like. And so for him to then completely change and write about his own fantastic creature, um, it's, I mean, he could be hypocritical or want the fame maybe that guy got, but to the same degree, it's also inconsistent. So might have
Yeah,
been
no,
true
I,
to
I
his
I think
credit.
I think Marco Polo said a lot of things that were kind of true. He described, I think, what he saw in the courts of the emperors of China very accurately. So I'm not actually saying he was lying or he was trying to sell a book. I think some people have claimed that as well, but that's not my position. What I'm saying is, if you've never seen a crocodile before, all right, and you saw that picture where you had like 9 men on the back of that saltwater crocodile. If you saw that creature, and remember the way he described the creature was still not what I would think a creature would be. He said it slid on its belly, and the way they killed it was they put upright stakes on the ground, so it basically impaled himself.
Yeah,
So that to me that sounds like it. And he only said it had two front legs. He didn't say
yeah,
it had any back legs at all. So if you can think of a creature with two front, that doesn't even sound right to me. It doesn't even sound like a dragon. But if he saw a crocodile coming out of a river, maybe all he saw was the two front legs. Now, it's two short legs, and a crocodile when it kind of crawls, its belly is drag on the ground. Now, the only inconsistency to a crocodile that I could find in his description was he said it had 3 claws. Now, if you look at a crocodile, it's got 5 digits. So that's the only inconsistent. But if you look at the crocodile, its 3 digits here are very long, and its 2 here are quite small. So the question is, what's more reasonable? Was he describing a dragon, which doesn't even sound like a dragon? I mean, it wasn't flying; it was dragging itself. It only had 2 legs. So is that more believable, or is it more reasonable to think he saw a crocodile he's never seen before coming out of the water with his 2 paws, only saw the 3 big claws instead of all 5 digits? Is that more reasonable to believe, because we know crocodiles exist, than he saw an actual dragon itself? So I'm not saying he's a liar. What I'm saying is, when you've never seen a creature like a crocodile before, and they can be quite huge, will you not kind of describe it a little bit more fantastical than what it is? It's not like there were photographs or cameras that existed at the time. It was a person's writing, and I believe he wrote that when he was in prison. So it wasn't written on the day that he saw it. It was written, I think, years and years after. So, yeah. So it all comes down to, as I said, Benjamin, and my conclusion is, what's more reasonable to believe? So I
Well,
think it's more
oh,
reasonable
sorry.
that way. No, no, go for it, Benjamin.
So I think um, if you take the Marco Polo's account in its full context, I think a alligator or crocodile, as we know them, becomes unreasonable. Don't think we should just disregard the 2 front legs or how it looked, because he describes how they hunted them, its medicinal purposes, the hide that it can be made of. So it seems he either saw them or was intimately familiar with how this creature was used in culture. So to know every way that it's used and how much it was farmed, but then to completely get wrong the structure so that it pulls itself with its 2 front legs, has huge eyes the size of a small loaf of bread. It's that doesn't seem consistent, but a more uh, a more kind of a more powerful counterpoint from Marco Polo's description was, it does not live in the water, it lives in the caves. It goes to the water to drink, especially after eating something. So if it goes to the water after eating something, that means it was not hunting in the water like a crocodile would. So those 2 facts, where it hunts and where it lives, go against what we know about
Yeah.
crocodiles.
So what I'll say is, the Chinese, and I'm Chinese itself, so I'm allowed to kind of say this. The Chinese eat anything that's medicinal. They ground up tigers' penises to kind of solve whatever cancer or whatever. So, the medicinal stuff is, I think, a kind of moot point. Look, let me try
Yeah,
and describe
sure.
it this
Yep,
way.
sure.
What's more believable? All right. So he got a couple things wrong about a crocodile living in a cave. So he did he see the back legs or not? But to me, that description is not much of a stretch that it's a crocodile. Then the way he described it as a fire-breathing dragon with wings that flies, with 2 legs, doesn't even have a back leg as well. I mean, that lives in a cave. I mean, what's a bigger stretch? Is it a bigger stretch to assume that he got a couple things wrong? Maybe he saw it come out of a cave and assumed it lived in a cave. It obviously was near a river, which is what a crocodile is. Did he exaggerate a few things? Like the eyes was bigger than what it actually is. If that's the first time he saw a crocodile, is that more believable than it describes a dragon? And we've seen depictions of what dragons look like. We've seen the Chinese dragons as well. They look like big serpents with multiple, frills, and like kind of like, what do you call, like hairy kind of beards, and definitely 4 legs. And those legs aren't small. They're quite big when you look at the Chinese dragons as well. But it's depicted as a very large serpent.
Mm.
So can you see his description basically aligning itself to what the Chinese, sorry, I lost you. Yeah, what the Chinese kind of drew what a dragon looked like? Or can you see, or is it a bigger stretch to assume that he's describing a crocodile, which exists in China as well? So to me, I'm saying that it's more believable that he thought he saw a crocodile, described it a little bit differently than compared to a Chinese depiction of what a dragon looks like, which is actually very different to what he described.
Right. I think, and I'm going to be a bit punchy here.
Go for it.
Marco Polo's account is so descriptive. What you're saying only seems reasonable if you're willing to leave half of it out. So if we're willing to cherry pick which part of Marco Polo's story we like, I mean, why even say it looks like an alligator at all? What he was actually talking about was some kind of a large flying bird. Well, let's discredit the whole story. If we take Marco Polo at his word, which maybe he's a liar, but if we take him at his word, what he was describing clearly was not an alligator. And because he so intimately described how the people use it, whether medicine actually works or not or whatnot, because he was so familiar with how it was used, to then say he got things wrong, such as where it lived and hunted, such as it would eat tigers. I don't know how many tigers will hunt in the water, but tigers usually don't just go play in the water. Um, that does not seem reasonable to be a crocodile. So
Hmm.
I'm not saying Marco
I
Polo.
think we're getting a little bit. I think from what I understand, what you're saying is you're getting quite specific on what Marco Polo actually said. I mean, if we have the time, I can put up the actual quote from his book that describes this, and
Yes,
I really don't think it's, maybe it's just how we interpret it, but I don't think it's kind of saying what you're saying. So let me just,
I don't mind. You can pull it up.
no. So if, let me know if you can see this. So what I've tried to do in this code is highlight the descriptions that he gave. Can you can't see that, can you? Stop screen. Okay. So what I've highlighted in yellow is the description. So he says it's a serpent. It's, about 30 feet. So in brackets, it's obviously not what he said, but it's a descriptor of what he's saying. So it's about 30 feet in length and 8 feet in girth. It has two short legs near its head and three claws like that of a tiger. And this is what you were saying before, Benjamin. Eyes larger than a four-penny loaf. I don't really know what a four-penny loaf is, but I assume it's big. He also talks about the jaws being wide enough to swallow a man, and its teeth are large and sharp. And this is your point here around where whatever beast that he meets, it basically can eat, whether it's a tiger, a wolf, or any, he will devour. And this is the point where we were talking about. They drag themselves towards some lake, spring of water, or river in order to drink. By their motion in this way along the shore in their vast weight, they make a deep impression as if a heavy beam has been drawn along the sand. Right, so this is the actual quote in his book, minus the brackets, which are just descriptors of what he's trying to say. Now, here's a picture of a crocodile. Look at how those jaws can conceivably bite into a tiger or wolf. So to me, that describes it. When you're saying that when he walks, it's like a heavy beam that's being drawn along the sand.
Let me
I
see.
mean, when you look at how a crocodile, like the imprints a crocodile would leave on the sand when it's walking, it would look like you are dragging a heavy beam across the sand as well. So I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but maybe it's the way I'm interpreting what Marco Polo's writing. But that describes quite similarly to a crocodile to me. Does that make sense, Benjamin?
Um, let me see. Well, so I'm not sure if your text has it. I assume it does. Your print's quite small. But in the daytime, by reason of great heat, they lurk in caverns, not in the water, from whence at night they issue to seek their food. And whatever beasts they meet, uh, they lay hold of, whether tiger, wolf, or any other. Now, if they're not in the water and they're able to lay hold of a tiger or a wolf, that must mean they're pretty quick not in the water. And while crocodiles can have slow, quick reactions out of the water, the reason that all those guys can catch them is because they're not very nimble. You have to be nimble out of the water to catch a tiger or a wolf. Um, so that does not seem to work with alligator, along with parts of what you read, which were they individual facts, such as two legs instead of four individually? Yeah, we could say it's an alligator, but putting all this together in the full context, I don't think that works.
If I was an alligator in the water and a tiger came to drink in the water, I could grab that. I mean, I've seen videos of a massive crocodile taking an entire deer, and they're larger than, I mean, well, I think in terms of mass, they're smaller, but they're quite large compared to a tiger as well. So look,
Yes.
I think we're not probably not going to kind of agree, but what I will kind
Well,
of end with is, when you're
sorry.
talking about a crocodile being, sorry, this dragon or dinosaur being nimble, the way Marco Polo describes it is he's saying that, it drags its vast weight, leaving a deep impression as if a heavy beam had been drawn upon the sands. That doesn't sound to me, Benjamin, like someone that on land is so nimble that it would be able to catch a tiger. What it sounds like to me is if it's by the river, because it does say that it goes to the river to drink, it's believable to me that it's hiding underneath the surface of the river or lake or whatever, which is what crocodiles do. Some animal comes to drink by the river and lake, and it just pounces and grabs the animal. That's how a crocodile kind of hunts anyway. So whether it's a deer or a gazelle or a tiger, it's reasonable to me that that's what Marco Polo saw. Whereas when he actually describes how it walks, it just doesn't sound like a nimble creature. I mean, you can't have an impression where you're dragging a heavy beam drawn along the sands. That sounds like it's a very nimble creature that can chase down and hunt a tiger,
Sure.
unless it's ambushing a tiger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'll push back on one point, and then I can make a concluding statement for this topic.
Yeah, shoot.
And so the one point I'd put is sand vipers, they fully drag their bellies, but they're very quick on the sand. Iguanas, I don't think their bodies are fully off of the ground. Maybe they are, but they have pretty short legs and they're incredibly quick. Also, they hunt it when it's going to get a drink of water, which it usually does after it eats. So it may be quite less stealthy, less nimble, and less enthusiastic when it's going to drink water. When an anaconda or any other serpent eats a huge meal, any constrictors eat a huge meal, they become very lethargic for weeks or months while they digest that. So if it shares certain attributes like that, I think it's reasonable that it's taking its time or it's easily trapped while it's crawling along in a slower manner. The concluding point that I'll make is that yes, uh, alligators probably could take a tiger or wolf or wildebeest while they're in the water. But as I pointed out from Marco Polo's descriptions, they go to the water to drink. Other than that, they live in caves or layers, sleep there during the day at least, and it doesn't say, there's no evidence to say it hunts in the water. It says it goes to drink after hunting. And so I'll conclude with it, alligator does not seem reasonable,
Okay.
or crocodile.
Yeah. I've got nothing to say. All I'm saying it's just how we interpret the evidence. I don't read it that way when I kind of read what Marco Polo says, just because like when you say he doesn't say it says it when sorry when you say Marco Polo writes that it goes to the river for drink, I read that to also mean he doesn't say it doesn't live in the river or it doesn't it's not spending a bulk of its time in the river. It doesn't say it. I mean, you're saying it says it, and to me, I read it in the opposite way. If that kind of makes sense. So, yes, it does go to the river drink, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't also hunt in the river as well. It doesn't. It's not clear. But
Mm.
the points that I was trying to raise is that where it does describe something, I see very close analogy to a crocodile, and you don't. I think that's kind of the spectrum I was kind of talking about.
I I want to move on, but I don't want to just give the last word to a
You
squishy
you you can
description.
you can have the last word this
Great,
time, Benjamin.
great.
How's
I'll
that?
take the last word on this one.
Yeah.
Um, there's no evidence it hunts in the water. There is evidence it goes to the water, meaning it's not currently in it after it hunts. There's also evidence it does not spend the day at least in the water where it would be nice and cool. It spends the day in caverns. If you are something that likes the water, it would make sense, unless you preferred simply the dark, that you would spend your time in the water, not in a cavern. So I don't mind saying Marco Polo could have been a liar. That's a separate debate. I do not think, based off Marco Polo's description, if we take him as an honest person, that's up for discussion. I do not think we can honestly say, based on the full context, that this was an alligator.
Yeah.
Do you want to segue into a separate
Yes,
conversation
let,
point?
let's let's do that
Yeah.
just to make sure the audience is having a bit of fun. So, hey, thanks for discussion. Like I said, I think the Marco Polo one is, I actually agree. I don't think he was lying per se. I just think it's our interpretations are different. What else did you want to kind of talk about?
Oh, I did want to say people do need to be aware of context of stories. Marco Polo did write that in prison, and in fact, he didn't write it. He had a prison buddy who was a romance writer write it all. So we should be a little skeptical of Marco Polo, but I do think that was a good point. Uh, it does matter where and how Marco Polo told his story. So I appreciated that.
Actually, I appreciate you bringing that up as well, Benjamin, because to me that bit of fact probably goes in my favor than yours as well.
Yes.
So You are a very fair interlocutor, and I kind of really appreciate that. So I just want to kind of make sure the
Um,
audience understands that. So where do you want to kind of go? Like I had a
you,
whole bunch of.
yeah, I
Sorry.
think so. You had a point. All I wrote was water serpent. I think it had to do with Chinese dragon specifically. Uh, what was your
Oh,
point?
it was just that I think in a previous when I was researching this, I was looking at just YouTube debates on the dinosaurs live with man. I found the one obviously that you had with CP and Snake, which is kind of where I based some of this on. So like I said, I have you in a little bit of a disadvantage. But I also found some really stupid arguments that Nephilim P kind of made as well. And one of the things that
Oh,
he kind of said was, well, he said two things. He said the Chinese word, the Chinese called it dragons, so therefore dragons were dinosaurs, and they have dragons in their zodiac sign, and that's the only animal that's not real. So ergo, they must be real. And I know you didn't say it, but my point was, well, the actual Chinese word for dragon, long. Okay, it doesn't actually mean dragon as we Westerners would say it, which is when I say to you what a dragon is, obviously because of our culture, we think of, flying Game of Thrones like creatures that, breathe fire and, have thorns and whatever all over its body. That's not how the Chinese thought a dragon looked like. It actually long, which is the word for that we translate as dragon in English, actually describes a water serpent. All right, so it's all I'm saying it's a translation thing. Just because you're looking, it's like I think if I can kind of segue a little bit, when you talk about the behemoth in Job, I know a lot of young Earth creationists swear by the King James version, and the King James version. So I'm not familiar with the Hebrew. The Hebrew could be different, and I know you were talking about the Hebrew kind of version, but in the King James version, it writes it moves its tail like a cedar, which to me is the action is like a cedar. It's not the description of the tail is like a cedar. Okay. Like I said, the Hebrew might be different. I'm not familiar with the Hebrew, and I know that's what you were specifically talking about. So I don't want to kind of focus on this, but I'm just trying to draw that as parallel. It's in the translation. Right. So when I was talking about the Chinese word dragon, the Chinese don't think of long, which is the Chinese word for dragon, as a fire-breathing flying monster. It's a water serpent. Does that make sense?
yes. So I just want to poke around kind of in your thinking, and this at this point, it's not going to be so much a debate as me just kind of. I just want to see what you're thinking on that. So
Yeah,
would you
of
say
course.
then, and this isn't a point to me because of what I'm about to say, would you say then that Chinese dragons, which in this case were not dinosaurs, Chinese dragons may have existed, so they may have put in their zodiac a creature that did exist that wasn't a dinosaur, was actually a type of large water serpent. Is what
No,
where?
I think the Chinese has a lot of fantastical creatures like the Greek did with the minotaurs and the centaurs and stuff. The Chinese had the monkey
Mhm.
god. It had multiple types of god. The question really is which part of that can we pass as real animals and which part can't we? Like even the zodiac sign creatures as well. They're all magical creatures in that whilst they might have the shape of a bull, it might have a shape of a pig, for example. They're actually magical pigs and magical bulls with characteristics in that kind of liaise into if you were born in that year, these are the kind of characteristics of a pig, which I because I'm not I didn't grow up in China, I don't quite know what it is, but let's say dragon. I know the dragons are meant to be considered lucky. So if you're born in the year of the dragon, you are a lucky child. So the zodiac symbols are basically it's like astrology. If you it's a Chinese way to kind of say, hey, if you're born in this year, these are the characteristics of your baby. But if we kind of take what you just said, Benjamin, do we then believe in the monkey god? Do we believe in all the fantastical made up, and I'm sure you'll agree, are made up creatures that the Chinese also believe in as well? So where do you draw the line? Where do you kind of go, well, this is real, this isn't real? For me, it comes down to other supporting evidences. Do we have fossils of these water serpents? No, we don't. Do we have depictions of them? Yes, we do, but they're not the same depictions that we see in the fossils. So it's not like there is corroborating evidence of a drawing of a water serpent. Does that kind of make sense? And even the
This,
Chinese dragons look nothing like the English dragons as well. So that's to me even a point against the fact that there are dinosaurs. They are totally different looking.
yeah, I pointed that out. Germanic dragons and
Yep,
Chinese dragons.
yep,
I think are my point
yep,
number two. Yep, they
yep.
do look different. Um, this might be a bit of an ignorant question. I really don't know all the uh, all the different fossils people have found, but I would ask, for all the 12 creatures of the Chinese zodiac, do we have fossils for all of those?
They're all extant animals. They are all alive
Sure,
today. And that's
sure,
yeah, yeah,
sure. But my question is, say that that water serpent went extinct again 500 years ago. If any other of those, the rat or anything, had gone extinct 500 years ago, would we then be fair in saying, well, we don't have fossils? Well, if that water serpent was a fairly modern creature, I don't think we should expect fossils. I'm not saying that water serpent was a dinosaur or a dragon, but I'm just curious as to why that one creature is not real.
yeah.
And also, based on what you said about what the Chinese call the dragon, it seems that it's reasonable. It could be real, but not a dinosaur or a dragon. Um,
Yeah, so maybe 2 points. We definitely have fossils for precursors to the animals that we have today. So
sure.
we obviously don't have a fossil that look exactly like the pig that we see today, but we see analogs of what will eventually evolve in the pig today, right? So I think, look, my whole point is this is mythology. This is a story. This is what the Chinese people try to tell, whether they're children or whatever, to try and make sense of the world. Now, in Chinese mythology, the dragon is the most powerful, the most luckiest. It's the goodest, if that's even a word. It's the goodest of all the creatures.
I like
It's
that. Yeah,
it's it's probably definitely not a word, but hey, I can say English is not my first language, right? So anyway,
sure.
jokes aside, no, English is my first language. Yeah, so um, is it any surprise that if you're building something that's like astrology, so Chinese zodiac is very similar to, I guess, the Western astrology kind of concept, um, that you're putting a physical characteristics on babies that were born in a specific year based on animals? Is it conceivable that you would take the highest rated, the most highly regarded, the most highly revered creature, even though it's imaginary, as something that that this would be, if you were born this year, you would be the luckiest child because this is the Chinese dragon. It'd be the luckiest child that was born. It'd be like it'd grow up to be the emperor. So does it kind of make sense that in a
Mm,
mythology you would have that? Yes, it does. Is it reasonable? Yes, it is. Now, then flip it aside. Is it reasonable then that a Chinese dragon, as depicted, is actually a dinosaur? And look, maybe, but what are the supporting evidence behind that? Is there a fossil of that? No. Do you get what I'm trying to say,
yep.
Benjamin? Like,
In
we then
fact,
have to look at other
yep.
other evidences as well.
I like that because that's the trouble with almost any story is you only see one half of it, such as I described with the zodiac, all the other 11 exist. But then you brought the round circle perspective. Yeah, but look at the monkey god. Look at all these other things. That leaves it as it brings a very powerful counterweight to someone who could say, oh, well, this must be evidence. Well, maybe not. Maybe we need to think more about that. So I appreciated that. And I think with what you've said, unless I learn more for as far as the zodiac argument goes, I'd have to lean in your favor on that. I didn't bring that up, but I appreciated you diving into that because that certainly is something that comes up in debates. Um, and I appreciated your perspective on that.
Can someone in the audience send a link to this debate to Nephilim P? He could probably learn a thing or two just listening to Benjamin. Just a suggestion.
Thanks. Um, the the only debate I was in with nephew was on my team, and he left pretty
I
early
know, I
on.
saw that one. That's
Yes,
yeah, I had a debate with him as well. He left in within 2 minutes.
well, I
So
will say I have nothing against him, and as I believe that all human beings are image bearers. So I care for Neff the same way I care for Snake and Ian and everybody. So I really appreciate all
thank you,
human
Benjamin.
beings. Now, Snake, this has been a good conversation this last part, but we might want to end on a debate note. Snake, how much time do we have? Are we close to QA, or can we dive into something new?
We have a little more than 5 minutes left,
Okay. Well,
and then your closing statements, if you wish to take them.
Do you want to talk about human and dinosaur footprints? Do you know enough about that potentially?
no, I didn't bring that up because I looked into it, and I don't think it's a good argument.
Okay, well then
Yeah,
let's skip that one. I'm
yeah.
just kind of going through what I kind of talked about. I had a slide around sauropod sightings where I kind of mentioned the Loch Ness monster and the Mbembe, I think, in the Congo River. Do you know much about that, or we can move on as well?
I don't know much, and I will just, and I know some people are going to take this as kind of tongue in cheek, but I try to stay away from specific mythology or cryptic stuff, and I do try to build a historical case, and there is a difference between
So,
something
so
that can
can I
be
ask Benjamin? And I'm sorry to kind of cut in here as well. POI, POI,
sure,
CP,
great,
POI.
go for it.
Probably not relevant, but I thought, since we were talking about how we never use it, I'll just continue on POI.
Almost.
I
Um,
love it.
Almost.
so where do you draw the line, Benjamin, around saying this is mythology, it's complete BS, and I'm not going to use it? To, the depictions that you had put in previously about Saint George fighting a dragon, etc. I mean, to me, they're all mythology. Right? So, to me, it's
Sure,
all stories. Like, where do you draw the line that kind of says, and maybe it's archaeological evidence I'm not aware of. Maybe it's things like that. Maybe it's just a preponderance of the story. I don't know. But the question really to you is, Benjamin, where do you kind of say, well, I don't believe in this sauropod drawing because it's a mythology, it's whatnot. But hey, when Marco Polo writes about this, it's kind of true. So this is like writings. It's not like a photography evidence or anything. Like,
yeah.
where do you and how do you draw the line, Benjamin?
Context
Mm.
is key. I can't draw any absolute lines. No one, I don't think anyone can draw an absolute line in history. Julius Caesar very reasonably existed. He very reasonably wrote his own stuff for his conquests. They were most likely very embellished. But do we know for a fact? Can we hold Julius Caesar's hand and ask him questions? No. So very reasonably he existed.
He definitely
So
existed, Benjamin, because I
yeah.
had a Caesar salad a couple of weeks ago,
Well,
and so that's proof.
yeah, hard to argue with. Yeah, but you also ate chicken, so dinosaurs live with man.
Exactly.
If we're gonna go the
You're,
what we
you're
eat
learning,
route,
Benjamin. You're learning.
yeah, yeah. But let me go back to the context point because I really do in everything. You read a book, you talk to another human being. Context is so important. In Marco Polo's context, he is an explorer, at least seemingly, genuinely writing about his experience, first person, even if he's dictating it, it's first person. He writes about his experiences in China. With George, um, the thing I mentioned in the last debate, George was a Dunning-Kruger effect on my end. Because as we figured out during the debate, not only were the stories of George, I think, written or depicted like 1500 years after him, if you read the story, it's obviously a very fantastic story. He's not just saying, hey, these people hunt this thing and this is how it looks. He's saying that George slayed a fire breathing thing. And not only did he not kill it immediately, he used the princess's girdle to kind of lasso it or whatnot and bring it back to the village and then kill it. So context, that's, I think, our best effort in drawing clear lines in myth versus actual history is we have to take in the full context, who wrote it, how it was written, when it was written. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, no, and I think it still goes to my point, Benjamin, earlier. I think it's just the reason why we're here in the debate today is that we have, I guess, different. We're both on different points of the spectrum of what we accept as context, right? So I think it's probably fair to say that I may have a higher acceptance and a burden of proof before I'm convinced of anything, um, than maybe you do. I'm not saying that you'll just believe whatever you're told. What I'm saying is that I think we have a different perspective of what we think is real and what we think is true. Does that kind of make sense? And I think that kind of leads us into
Maybe.
our different kind of beliefs.
Yes, but that is the dangerous of worldview bias and presupposition. It tends, especially if we don't challenge it strongly, it tends to make us think that we have the upper hand simply because we have the hand. So maybe you're totally right, or maybe you're totally delusional. I don't think you're either. I think that it's good to have conversations because I don't think you're
I
delusional,
like to think I'm
but I also
totally right.
disagree with
I mean,
things.
no, no.
Oh,
I mean,
I
I think
know.
I
I do
saw
too.
Mark
I do
Reed
too.
on the chat as well, and he's a fellow Aussie. So we Australians are always right, Benjamin. And it's a flat Earth, and if you want to come and visit, just be
Isn't there
careful
a
you don't drop off.
Well, I was gonna say we can't go off because isn't there Flat Earth Aussie? Isn't he a Iron Horse or whatever his handle is now? He's from
Oh
Australia,
goodness, you're
so
right. I forgot all about him. Yeah, oh, damn it. We can't get rid of everybody.
yes,
It's a
yes.
democracy.
So that's in favor of Flat Earth. Totally separate
Good
debate,
point. Good point.
All
but
right.
Good point.
Ian conceded Flat Earth, I think.
I think
Okay,
CP,
I
you're on
have a
mute.
question for the.
Well, there's the bell.
I have a question for the debaters. Are we just throwing out the scoreboard at this point, or do you still want us to try to score this?
Oh, I was actually I was looking forward to the scoring, but
I don't. You're welcome to score it. I don't mind.
yeah, I
Oh,
was
are you
thinking.
sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I definitely, whether
It
I
was probably more
stomped
of
or
a
got
discussion than
stomped,
a
I think it
debate,
was a
I guess.
Yeah,
Is what
exactly.
I
It
this
really
was
kind of just
tooth and
shaped up as
nail,
more of
so
a friendly
I think we should see
discussion,
it.
but we can
But
still try to.
I was trying to say this purposely, and I mean this with all honesty and truthfulness, Benjamin. I have interacted with young Earth creationists, and they have been rude and I just did not like their behavior, and that made me kind of want to debate them and mock them in my debates. And what I've been telling people is, I've met you. I mean, Benjamin sent me out of the blue an email that said Happy Father. Now he got the date wrong because Father's Day is actually not the same in North America as it is in Australia. But he sent me out of the blue. He said Happy Father's Day, and he sent me an email asking how my child was and stuff like that. So this is what I think a young Earth creationist should be, not the other YouTubers. And I'm hoping that Benjamin's happy with this kind of discussion, that we would do more in the future, because I actually love interacting with someone that is genuine. Whilst he has different beliefs than me, he tries to be logical to support that, and I kind of appreciate that. And that's why I think this isn't more of a debate, because I think I respect him a lot. I mean, if I didn't, then it would have been a dumpster fire, and I would have just teased him mercilessly. But yeah, I think that's why it ended up being discussion. But hey, I actually am kind of keen to know my score. Honestly, that's kind of why I
Yeah,
did it.
we can
Cinematic.
can you-
Cinematic wants more bloodshed, I think.
No, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. It's just like, okay, so just a little bit of background for me
Before
is, can I talk?
extend, I do want
Can
to.
anyone hear me? Am I on
Sorry.
I
mute?
think Benjamin is
Am I
trying
on
to
mute?
cut
Can
in.
you hear me?
If
No,
I
no,
Am I on
can
no,
mute?
no.
be
But
rude and
I
interrupt
think
you.
Benjamin is also trying to say something as well.
Oh,
Benjamin
Oh
was trying to say
no,
something as well. So
can people hear me? What's
I'm
going
so
on?
sorry.
Oh,
I think
okay.
We
there's a
might have
lag.
had a little bit of lag, yeah.
Oh, there was a lag. Okay. So, Benjamin.
Benjamin was going to say something, so maybe let him speak first, and then you go, CP.
I just wanted to say that my experience with Ian, and actually there's a few other debaters that I've emailed, talked to, and I won't name them, but Ian has been just very genuine, very nice guy. He's also extended the invitation to have more debates. I'm always open to debating anybody, but I have appreciated this with Ian, and I can't say I've got a date right now. Life is crazy, but I'd be happy, be honored to debate you again in the future.
And it will be a discussion, Benjamin. I just cannot go all in on you. That's basically it. So it will be a discussion.
Well, I think that we are skipping the concluding statements then.
Yeah, I think so. I don't really
Sure.
have
Well,
much else to
thank you. I
say, to be
appreciate
honest.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the issue I'm having
Yes,
though
that
is, so like,
was
can
my
you hear me?
concluding.
Can anyone
Yes,
hear me?
yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay.
Are you
All right.
drunk?
Yes.
I
Too
am
much
not.
champagne.
No, I'm not drunk. Oh my god. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that if you want me to
Are there
score
two
you,
computer screens?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Benjamin's also talking as well, but I can hear you fine, and there's no lag.
Okay. All right. Can I speak without getting
Yes, you can
interrupted for
speak.
a second? Okay.
Yes, go for it.
All right. So what I'm trying to say is that, in order for me to score this debate, it's very, very difficult because, I'm trying to think as a professional debate coach, and you guys have made so many concessions throughout this entire debate that it's it's really difficult for me to view this as a competitive match because it's almost like you were playing basketball and you just kept giving your opponent the ball. So I can still try, but with that in mind, we can also just call it a friendly discussion and call it a day. I'm fine with that. But what do you guys think?
We could
Well, if you
we
don't think the
could give
scoring makes any
feedback
sense,
with no score too, if you want.
yeah, maybe I'm keen to know the feedback. I mean, you're a debate coach. I'll learn something from you. Maybe give me some feedback. But in the context that we didn't really go in as a full-on hard-hitting kind of debate, so maybe in that context, so any feedback that says you didn't do this hard enough, etc., I think, well, that's missing the point of the discussion I've had with Benjamin. But if you had any feedback, maybe without the scoring, I would definitely find that helpful.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to answer some questions before we give the feedback?
Sure.
Okay. Snake, can you roll the questions so that they are visible to the debaters?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Who is the master of debating?
Is anybody
Well,
else
we'll go.
getting broken signal or feedback? Because I am getting some glitching on my side.
You
Not on my
seem.
side, Benjamin. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it's you.
Interesting.
You're pretty low res
Yeah,
as
probably is
well.
me.
Getting
Well,
better.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
But it's okay. It's all right. So
Interesting.
for us,
Sure.
Scott
Sure.
Duke asks where we can get a backstage pass, and well, you would have to be a debater, or we can host some open mics. I'm trying to get that going more regularly, so we'll notify you of that. I don't know if you're on the Discord yet, Scott Duke. We started a Discord trying to get that as kind of a hub for information. And yes, Stupid Horror Energy, that's a good idea. We will make a roster. And on that note, she also has the first question for the debaters, question for Benjamin. In many of those fossil sites, there are dinosaurs, crocodiles, and turtles, but never humans. How do you explain that?
I'm not sure how to explain that. That's a great point, and I'm not going to pretend I have researched that enough to do it justice. So, great question. I'm not sure.
Okay, anything to add to that, Ian?
Well, I mean, this SWE's point here basically supports what I'm saying. If there's no evidence of human fossils with dinosaurs, for example, then that's another point that basically says dinosaurs did not live with man. You think with all the amount of dinosaur fossils we've found, and keep in mind, Benjamin, I said 1% of fossils, so you would think that if you extrapolated that out, there would be hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands of dinosaurs everywhere. The fact that we can't find one of these fossils with humans, to me, makes my point that they did not live with humans.
Okay, and just a comment. Props on Benjamin for understanding how nested hierarchies work. This is kind of a question. Luca Negdudno asks a mammal stegosaurus because of
If he's pointing to the fact that it's interpreted as a rhinoceros. I think Ian even pointed out there's a few different ways that stegosaurus carving or engraving is interpreted.
Yeah.
Something we know that looks similar. I do think it's something that could resemble a stegosaurus or resemble a dinosaur. And again, I'm not saying it absolutely is, and I have a book to sell on it that you need to buy. I'm saying it's reasonable to say that based on the
Mm.
evidence I gave.
Yeah. So if can I jump in also as well, guys? Can I answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my 2 points of that one is you've got the carving, and your only evidence as a stegosaurus is the armor platings on its back. I guess what I'm saying is, but if you look at the animal itself, it does not look like a stegosaurus. There's no spikes, for example. It's got an overly large head. It's got ears, you know. And then you look at the greater picture, and there are I mean, not exactly the same. I take your point, but there are depictions of what are roundish, irregular shapes that looks like leaves, or could be the armor plating as well. So it then comes down to the balance of probabilities. If all you're saying is it's a stegosaurus based on those plates, and I can show examples of those plates also appearing in many different other carvings as well, what's more reasonable? That's where I'm kind of getting at as well. What's more reasonable? And yet also my second point of this one is if you kind of look at answers in Genesis, they're also saying that this particular evidence is suspect. So they've got a list of evidences of dinosaurs living with man, from strong evidence to middle to low. Ica stones, for example, is low. This one is medium. They're saying it's suspect, worth more, worth more investigations, but they won't say this is evidence, which I think is what you're saying as well, Benjamin. It's not strong evidence.
All right. Any last words, Benjamin?
Nope.
Okay. And for Benjamin, Superhero Energy asks, why don't the Nazca lines depict any dinosaurs?
I don't know what the Nazca lines are.
That's those huge aerial patterns of
some
animals and stuff,
American
you can only
cats.
see them from the air
Yeah.
in South
Oh,
America. Yeah.
interesting. Well, we must not be looking in the right place. I guess if I have to make an argument, that's got to be it.
All right.
Well, they're definitely proof SWE of aliens. I mean, I think anyone can tell that if you can only see that by the air, they're actually landing pads for alien spacecraft. I think that's the Nazca lines. I think the conspiracy theory there, Benjamin, it's not that there are
Mm.
dinosaur lines, etc., but that they are proof that ancient aliens have visited Earth because you can't see them from the ground. So they must have been drawn for visitors from the sky. So, which I think is humorous.
Okay. Jason Torn asks, where are
Interesting.
the deposits of a dinosaur being killed by humans? Even one?
Do we have lots of deposits of dinosaurs being killed by anything?
Yeah, well,
I guess I'd
there
want
are
to know
there are
if
fossils of
that's
dinosaurs being
a
killed by other
consistent thing to
dinosaurs.
ask.
Yeah, so there are fossils where
Okay.
we have of dinosaurs eating other dinosaurs, of killing other dinosaurs. I think there's one where I can't remember what the dinosaurs are called, but it looks like a theropod having a fight with a something like a triceratops. They're not exactly that particular species, but there are examples of dinosaurs fighting with other dinosaurs. But to Jason Thorne's point, no examples of a human. And this goes back to I think the
Hmm.
other question around why don't we see fossils of humans and dinosaurs as well?
I think this one's a little different though, because I don't think this one's quite as easy for me to concede to. Because do we have dinosaurs being eaten by everything else that we know they could eat? Unless we have everything except a human alongside of a dinosaur, I don't think it's fair to say, well, then that's proof that humans weren't with them, because then we'd have to say, well, the other thing that wasn't next to them never was with them.
So,
Um,
so, so the way, yeah. So the way I'd answer this though is that we have evidence of dinosaurs killed or being killed by other animals that lived during that period. So ergo, other dinosaurs. What we do not have is evidence of any mammal. So mammals came after the dinosaurs died out. So forget humans.
mm,
Tigers, even modern day crocodiles, if you want to kind of use that. So there's no evidence of modern day animals or mammals with dinosaurs as well. So take the human out of it and just put all of mammals in there, and there's no evidence of that either.
Roger.
Ian, actually.
Yes.
Sorry, CP is looking angry because I'm not being aggressive enough.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Question for Benjamin.
Are you muted, Snake?
Yes. It always happens.
Phenomenal.
It always happens, yes. First, from Stupid Horror Energy for Benjamin, isn't a better explanation for dragon myths an innate fear of pythons, birds of prey, and elephants, which humans have combined to create these mosaic dragons?
Only if you want to discredit all the points that I brought up. So if you either come into this, like I said, with a presupposition that automatically says what I said can't be true, well, that'll do it no matter what. Or if you have the ability to fully and adequately rebuke everything I've said, well, that could do it as well. But on its face, no, I don't think it's a better explanation.
Okay.
I
Ian?
like I like the point though. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I like the point. I'll have to use this
Yeah,
next time
good
I debate
question.
it. It's we know humans have imaginations. We know they have fears. Is it a stretch to kind of think that they've put the fears of certain creatures together to come up with an imaginary creature that becomes the bad guy? And to me, it's not that big a stretch at all. So I think it's actually a good point. And I've never heard this one kind of raised before. So it's a unique point as well. So well done, SWE.
Indeed, indeed. And Luca asks again, if dragons' depictions are to
Hello.
be believed,
Hello.
what about creatures such as sea monsters, mermaids, and other oddities?
So same line of thinking as the vampires. If we can show that they are consistent through the whole globe, all cultures, all climates, all human recorded time, then I think we have a parallel example that we need to call into question. But um, I wasn't sure how to respond with Sasquatch, but with the vampires and with the Hollow Earth I showed those could be pinned down to either one continent or very close countries. So I think we need to be careful in how we try to say these are the same things. We got to take the full context.
Okay. Well, Ian, any response?
No. I agree. It's like what I said earlier. Which mythology do you pick and choose?
Okay. And last question for Benjamin from Andrew Cumming. Is it possible that dinosaurs did inspire dragon myths just as elephant skulls inspired cyclops myths, but only from their fossils, meaning they'd still have been extinct?
Yes. That certainly could be the case in some. I wouldn't think all, but I think if we conceded that, it would work in my favor.
I think yeah, back in the day
Oh,
when
I see how it wouldn't, because no, actually, I read an article on some series actually theories on the Sioux Indians finding fossils. Gosh, I had a line of thought. There's a reason I didn't include it, but no, I don't think that's as simple as he's saying it is.
Okay.
so I just want to kind of point out that back in the day when they first found fossils, so in the early 1800s or late 1700s, they found I think it was a brontosaurus femur. And if you kind of know what the femur looks like, it's this narrow piece that kind of comes out in like two bulbs. And they found the bottom half of that, and they thought it was actually the gonads of a giant, and that was the evidence that those giants existed, because those were gigantic testicles. So yeah, so look, I kind of bring that up to kind of say, yes, fossils do exist, and when we look at the fossils without understanding what they are, we come up with many stories. And in this case, it was a femur of a brontosaurus was evidence that giant humans existed because they were giant testicles. So I'll leave you with that
If
one.
we look at fossils without fully understanding what they are, that I fully agree with. I think we should apply that to all time, past and present.
Yep. Except we have a lot of sciences that kind of tell us what those fossils are. So
Sure,
they're not
sure.
dragons. So, anyway.
Well, there you go. And so now on to the feedback portion. Do we have a score? Cinematic. You're muted.
Having all sorts of technical difficulties today. Do they want a score? I can give them a score if they want. What do you guys want?
Yeah, I'm okay
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah,
why not?
I'm open.
Okay. So I would like to preface by saying I really do admire the respect that you two have for each other. And I think that is good that you're role modeling having open conversations with respect and etiquette. And I think that is great. And I definitely don't want you to tear each other down just for the sake of blood. I think there's I think there's a middle ground that we could have reached for sure. Because I think my issue with, and this was for both of my debaters, not just one or the other, was that sometimes I felt like you were compromising on your own position for the sake of bonding with your opponent. For example, there were multiple times for both of you where I felt that your opponent made an argument that was not that strong, and then both of you would say, "Oh, that's a great point," but it wasn't a great point. In fact, you could have taken that chance to sort of boost your argument up better. So I have to say that if I'm going to be scoring, I can't give you very strong points in style, and I hate to do that because when you've been acting so polite and kind and respectful, I don't want to be the bad guy. So it's kind of awkward. But it's just sort of my debate coach on the competitive debate circuit, within the NSDA. It just wouldn't fly. So your scores are not going to be very high, unfortunately, because of
We're going to have to go harder next time, Benjamin.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, you don't have to be mean to each other. In fact, it's better if that what you were modeling towards respect is good. Just with more conviction towards your position would have been better. So, okay, I think I'm gonna give you both the same score for style because I felt like you both kind of mirrored each other in the same way. So Snake, do you want me to decide who won, or do you want to do the thing where we call each other and discuss this?
Well, we usually do that while they're answering questions.
Yeah.
We can just discuss it live because it's kind of. I agree with you on the scoring. I found it very difficult to score as well.
Yeah. And I feel like in terms of the winner, I might have a controversial opinion here, and I don't want to declare a definite winner until I know that Snake and I are on the same page about it. So
Well, we
how
just
about
average the scores, right?
I'll give some feedback and you give some feedback, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Okay. I think we got a bit messed up with our flow here. Okay. So for Benjamin, I think that I saw some definite improvements from the time that you debated us in terms of strengthening a cross-cultural consistency argument, because I was impressed by the fact that you were able to map out the fossils and link them to every continent as well, showing why your cross-cultural consistency argument was relevant. Your dragons are not outside of the imagination argument. Once again, this kind of goes back to the same point where you noted yourself that it was not that compelling. And I think you were not doing yourself a favor because it could have been compelling. But I feel like you kind of tore yourself down in there. Sorry, I'll try to give that feedback to a minimum, but that's going to be throughout. Okay. So I think that I was actually impressed by the way that you showed that the Stegosaurus weren't leaves, because not only did you just say, hey, look at the Stegosaurus, it clearly looks like a Stegosaurus, but you were very detailed in sort of taking a look at the actual art, showing what the leaves actually look like, and drawing doubt that this would be a simple enough explanation. And I thought that was actually quite convincing. So I thought your opening statement was very strong. But when you started talking about theories for extinction, I would have been more impressed if you had evidence for any of those theories to support them, because at that point it's just speculation. So being able to actually support any sort of evidence, like, you know, showing that humans actually hunted dinosaurs or this or that, would have been stronger. Okay, so that's kind of my feedback for your opening statement. Ian, I thought that you were really well prepared when you came into this, and I thought that was a really great strategy. And I know you're well prepared because I know how hard you've been working on this, and it showed, because in your opening statement, you really kind of came across as a psychic. You know, you had all of these things prepared on your slide of what Benjamin was going to say, and it really played out well and very impressively. So I really enjoyed that. I think you did a great job showing that not only are some of the myths constant across cultures, but that they were incorrect. And I was actually a little bit jealous because, as you know, I did a similar point in my argument, but I felt like you did it a little bit better than I did back in the day.
Chickens are beautiful, and I ate the chicken. That's all I can say.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I also thought that you did well when you actually looked at the hieroglyphics of the images of the dinosaurs, and you were able to actually provide strong explanations for it, whereas I just said, look at this beautiful chicken. So I think that you definitely improved from my case there. I really liked your info dumping, and that's a tactic of intimidation. Actually, it's one of the most competitive tactics that you utilized. It's one of the most competitive tactics that anyone can utilize to intimidate somebody, which is providing like a whole bunch of information in one place and making it impossible to actually sort of tackle it all at once when you started talking about all of the scientific evidence. So it's funny because this debate was so polite and kind, and yet at the same time you utilized hands down the most aggressive intimidation tactic of the debate world, period. I would have liked to see more of that scientific evidence brought into the debate itself and really kind of thrown into the arena, because from studying Benjamin's previous debate, it's not necessarily something that was discussed very much. So when it came to the opening discussion, it became much harder to really pinpoint feedback because of how polite you two were. But let me see what I can get. I think that it was good how Ian brought up the point that we don't have fossils in the way that dinosaurs have been depicted. And another concession by Benjamin. That is true, but then he brought up the point of what percent of extinct animals do you believe we have fossils for? I would have liked to see that connection between Ian's point being strengthened a bit more and how that related. But I think Ian kind of really summarized that this was a God of the gaps fallacy. And Benjamin, would you mind maybe explaining something a little bit, because I think I might have missed it. Your response to Ian's God of the Gaps, you mentioned that did you mention that we were willing to accept God as reasonable, but not dinosaurs, or was there a different sort of explanation?
No, I was tongue in cheek with the word God. Like I was saying, you're willing to choose this God of the gaps and not this God of the gaps. I wasn't talking actually about God or a God. I was talking about an idea that we're okay with. And I never really brought God into it when Ian mentioned God of the gaps. So I think we were using that as more to describe something than actually to talk
It was
about
more
God.
of a descriptor than saying.
Yeah.
You really
Oh,
have to
okay.
put it
Sorry.
yourself.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked for clarification on that. So I think there were way too many concessions in terms of the artistic evidence, where it seemed that you both kind of came to an agreement that a lot of it was up to interpretation. And I think in terms of the Marco Polo clash, I actually think that Benjamin won that clash. I felt that his arguments for the crocodile not really being realistically drawn to a crocodile were more detailed and more thought out and generally stronger. So I would give that clash personally to Benjamin. And then the final argument was centered around the dragons not necessarily being fire breathing, but water serpents. So I'm not sure that argument necessarily held up very strongly for me, because I wasn't necessarily sure exactly how that proved Ian's case. And that might have been bad listening on my part. Look, now I'm making concessions. These contagious concessions. But just from what I heard and from my understanding of it, it didn't seem like the strongest
It was
point.
more of a digression, I think. It was just.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it was just. It was a question that. Oh, you've got both. Is that what is that? Is that a dog or cat? You've got a
This
dog
is
and a cat.
yes, we have 5 cats and 1 dog.
Wow, that's nice. I've only
Yes.
got the one. No, I think it was just more CPA a question that that Benjamin had asked. It wasn't really. I guess it wasn't really pertaining to the debate itself. He kind of said, "Oh, I just didn't understand your point around the Chinese dragon." So we kind of delved into that a little bit, but it wasn't
Yep.
specific. It wasn't actually one of my arguments. It was just him kind of clarifying that. We just probably took a lot of time to clarify. That was all.
Oh, okay, yeah. I actually felt like that helped Benjamin's case. So that's my feedback. Snake, take it away.
Okay. So yeah, and just a reminder that feedback and scores are not based on Q&A performance or anything, just the debate. And yeah, I agree. You both conceded a lot of points to each other, which I thought was unnecessary. But I feel like it was pretty equal, so no real advantage there. But I think it probably just brought your both scores down about the same. In terms of, I score a little easier than her on concessions, because if I see being unreasonably stubborn as kind of a bad tactic to make. But the problem I had here was where concessions were made, both of you could have pushed a little harder. And so starting with Benjamin, I thought you definitely improved from when we spoke. And you did well in defining your terms and why you use the term dragon, and why, historically it would have been used to talk about large reptiles. You tied in the historical usage and why you're using those terms. And the usual points. I think you you went a little harder on the human records. I think that's the best choice for you, and really improved and did a good job just in general as far as talking about the how the fantastical depictions are accounted for, um, like how uh, you were explaining that kind of the ambiguous vagueness, um, and even fantastical depictions of modern animals um, were normal. So it during these fantastical depictions of dragons um, or other um, yeah the fantastical depictions or the vague depictions, this wasn't necessarily odd that this could still be depicting dinosaurs as well as modern animals. I thought you did pretty well with that because lots of depictions have exaggerations. I think you did a good job of making room for that these were dinosaurs, even though they have features that are odd and fantastical. Um, you gave the most compelling examples I think are out there. Um, you had a good knowledge, and I think what you did really well was seems like you had good command of how long you wanted to stay on certain points. You really controlled the conversation and the topics. Um, However, I think in general your argument is still based on mostly speculation. So even if we concede all of the main points you have, there's still something left to fill in. As if we prove it's all possible, we still don't have that hammer home that you really need. But I think you really did as well as you can. This is a hard topic, and yeah, and I wish you were correct. I want there to be some little baby dinosaurs out there to adopt.
I've
As for
told you there is. It's called chicken.
yeah, non-avian, Ian.
Don't even gotcha.
Um, yeah. So going over to Ian, let's see if I had anything that applies to both of you. Okay, we'll just go on to Ian. Um, I I think you did well with showing that the variables present here, things being mythological, they exist in all cultures. You said if we believe in dinosaurs, we should believe in vampires too. So you're setting up your standard of proof. That was something I think Benjamin did lack. I think Ian, you set that up. I think this you should have probably leaned into this a lot more, but it's good that you set it up. It's really hammered home what the standard of evidence is, and I think that you did a good job generally refuting the points during the back and forth. The point, it's a good point to say, with the available data we have to work with, this is the reasonable conclusion. Since we really just lack a lot of data, and Benjamin is relying on speculation, filling in some of the evidence, some of the ambiguous nature, because a lot of these examples, we actually don't know what they're trying to depict. With the Stegosaurus, people say, "Oh, it's a boar" or "It's a rhinoceros," and it really doesn't fit those either. So these are tough to answer, and all we really have is the available data. So that was a good point. And you posed good questions to Benjamin. I think that's a good strategy, is posing things in questions. But I think you pose them in your opening, and then you kind of just let them hang there. And you should have been really aggressive and push them on. Like, is it reasonable if there's a lack of exaggeration that the ambiguous examples are dinosaurs? Is that reasonable? You could have just kept pushing on those. Is it reasonable to think the descriptions are dragons, or are they crocodiles? questions like that, I think really you should have just really stuck to. And I'm saying you conceded. It was kind of like, okay, well, let's move on. But really, you could have dug a lot deeper with those questions. And I guess another example would be with if ancient humans can draw accurately, what's up with these supposed dragon and dinosaur depictions? We don't have any really clear-cut ones. We do have some ambiguous ones, but not clear-cut like the ones you showed. Really could have dug in a lot more with that. So I think, you got points for the. They are good questions, but I think you lost some points in strategy for not really capitalizing on those questions. And Benjamin would say some things like the alligator does not seem reasonable, and it seems like you could have just kept asking why, and really held his feet to the fire a lot more. Again, I love the friendliness, but I think that got in the way a little bit. Yeah, overall, I know you're not the affirmative, but you can still be a lot more aggressive. I like to see kind of like a cross-examination type of attitude. And the two topics, well, I would say that you were very responsive, and it's not passive, but you kind of let Benjamin control the flow of the conversation, and you would just respond to that. I think the two topics that you did try to bring up, Benjamin just basically conceded, the modern sightings and the fossil tracks. So I think that was a plus and a minus, because he conceded those, but you missed the opportunity to control the conversation, because those two topics you tried to take control of didn't go anywhere. But I think you really brought it home. You kind of dug deeper in the end, where you were trying to get where do you draw the line on mythology. I think you could have hammered this point the whole time a lot harder, but I think you ended well with that as your final point. And yeah, I guess I would like to see you be more active and on attack rather than just reactive. And let's see. Yeah, that's about it.
So, should we tell them our scores for each of them to figure out who won?
Yeah, I'm close to a score. I'm just kind of approximating at this point.
It is
How low
difficult.
can you go?
This is probably the
How
most
low can you
difficult
go?
tournament to score, not tournament, debate I've ever scored.
Yeah.
It's hard to grab onto it to score it.
Yeah, I think I've got it. So
Got it? Okay. Wait, message me in Messenger so that we can mess with them.
well, gotta have as little dead air as possible. So let's
Okay.
see. So I'm just gonna narrate what I'm
Well,
doing.
let me tell a joke about dinosaurs. And so so the question is that, well, I think one of the questions in my original debate with Nephilim Free was, are dinosaurs birds? And I think my answer to that, which James at that time kind of stopped it because Nephilim Free had rage quit and he wanted to kind of continue. My response to that was, not only are dinosaur birds, but they're actually humans. And I was waiting for someone to ask, why is that? And the joke was, well, let me answer it this way. Why are females like KFC? Because once you finish with the breasts and thighs, you're left with a greasy box to put your bone in. Anyway, thought I'd throw in that little bit of R-rated humor for everyone on the call. But yeah, so that just proved that that dinosaurs are not just birds; they're also female humans as well.
Can I add a
It
G-rated
works.
joke?
Of course, go for
to
it.
counteract that. So this is not original to me. I heard it on the radio. Why was the hen able to count her own eggs because she was a mathematician.
Mm.
There you go. That's
Oh.
my guy.
That's a dad joke. And you are a
Mhm.
dad, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
We have a problem with the scoring. Oh no. Snake, what do we
did I
do?
fail? Did I
Well,
fail?
if you guys
Okay, let me
disagree,
have
that'd
it.
be a very friendly way to go. I mean,
We
if you
have
Well, I
to-
think this is good. We could give them, yeah, okay.
We have to average them. I don't think it'll be dead even.
Is it a fail?
Well, it's dead
Like
even.
anything under 50 was a fail or something, I think, based on your criteria.
Did you average them already?
I did it for Ian, and
Okay, I've got mine.
wait. I got it. Yeah, I think.
My average for Benjamin, and math is hard. I
Math
need
is
to
hard.
be
I
more
gotta check
mathematician-ish.
Mathematician-ish. Okay.
cluck cluck.
This doesn't make
Okay, so
sense.
it
Okay.
didn't come out as even for me.
It didn't come out as even for me either, but it should have.
Okay.
Why is it not even? I'm so confused.
Carried
Maybe
the two.
math is
Did you
maybe my
carry the
math
two?
is broken. Yeah.
My math.
Oh wait, I
is
did it
broken.
wrong though.
My
Did I
math
do
is
mine wrong
broken.
too?
Yeah.
This is
so-
a long build up to kind of say I've got a shit mark. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
Well, they did warn us. They did
Yeah,
foreshadow
so.
messing with us.
Yeah,
They did foreshadow
this
that.
must be it.
That's
Debate tactic. You
context
guys
is
aren't the one
important.
debating, guys. You guys
I
aren't the
know.
one
I
debating.
gotta debate again. I haven't put myself out there in a long time. I gotta do that. Okay, I did it again, and it looks okay.
Okay.
Wow.
So I did it right,
All
but they're still not even. So we didn't have a tie.
Wait, I did it again, and it came out even. Are you sure?
0 is a number, I guess.
Well,
No,
we could.
you didn't get
Well,
zero. Okay, so I'm gonna try it one more time. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm right. I'm telling you.
But
I'm really good with Excel. I could build you guys an Excel sheet. To, just
Yep.
plug in your numbers.
Pivot table and everything.
Yeah. Could have a forecast
Okay.
statement in there.
So then, yeah. Wait, what? No.
Oh,
Carry the one.
Are you sure? Because I'm getting a tie when I'm averaging it. What are you doing?
I'll do it one more time. I don't think so.
I think you're doing it. Okay.
Well, they're
Should we
messing with
just
us.
say it?
I think so. I think they are.
Oh wait. 70. Yeah. 70. It's got to be a tie, Snake. There's no way about it because they add up to the same thing.
I'm happy with a tie with Benjamin.
Me too.
I'm actually
I'm
happy
honored
with
to
that.
tie Ian.
No big deal at all.
I can say I've tied a doctor, and
Yeah.
a fellow cat owner, fellow
Yep,
father. So
yep.
I'd be happy to tie Ian. I'm
Yep.
fine with
We're
that.
all the same.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it looks like you both averaged at a score of 70.5. So congratulations.
Higher than 50.
Is that out of 100? I would assume 70.5.
I think it's out of 71.
Oh,
It's not.
wow.
It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
you're right.
70.5
It is
out of
tied.
71.
How did it take us so long to figure that out?
Because I mixed up the first scores for a
I
second.
should have known if it's something between the guy and the girl would get it right. Because girls are always right. I think
Oof.
Benjamin and I had this discussion.
That's the
earlier.
secret to
Girls
a
are
happy
always-
marriage. You got it. There you go.
Well, that's what I was trying to tell Benjamin, but
That's
he's
could
like
be
a
a
different
debate topic. Could be a debate topic.
For the
Pick your
record,
battle.
Snake chose Ian as a slight winner by 1 point, and I chose Ben as a slight winner by 1 point. And so, congratulations.
So not only did we tie, we're both winners. That's phenomenal.
Yes. No
I'll
one
take
lost.
it.
No
Yeah.
one lost. Good stuff.
It was really hard because you both had, like even just with style, Ian did a little better in some ways, and Benjamin did a little better in some ways, and that was same with. I think I gave Ian the edge for content just because
Mhm.
you had, like Cinematic said, you were kind of psychic on knowing the topics. You even had the Marco Polo stuff up, which I definitely would not have been prepared for. Oh, hey, Answers in Atheism is here. Yeah.
I personally, yeah, I agree. I thought you both had different strengths and different weaknesses. I personally chose Ben as a slight winner just because I was really impressed with him in open discussion in terms of his logical content abilities. That being said, I do feel like Ian had a stronger opening statement, but I gave 1 point to Ben. So we both had you extremely close with a different person slightly edging. So there you go.
Well, I must wrap up. So let me say thank you so much to Ian. And thank you so much to both CP and to Snake for hosting this and for taking the time to judge that. That's different, and I think, especially after hearing how you guys think through it, I think that's something I'll appreciate. Just watching the debates, I appreciate that. So I think that's very cool. And as
That sounds like a round two to me, Benjamin. You pick the topic.
sounds good. I can't agree to a date. Life is crazy, but I am happy to agree to a round two with you. And then, as I try to do with all my debates, my wife is not a big fan of debates, but she absolutely supports me. I definitely could not have the time to do this if she wasn't doing so much in the background. So I absolutely appreciate her. Thank you, Daisy.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Indeed. And thank you guys. I want to have both of you guys as guest moderators if you're willing.
Yeah, that would be great. Would you guys like to judge us? We could flip the tables around because we need someone to judge me and Snake.
I wouldn't know how to be honest. I mean, I guess I picked up some tips based on how you did it, like, but I wouldn't know how to. To me, it'd be like, who's the funniest? Who made the rudest jokes? You know, who got under the other person's skin? That's normally how I debate.
It's kind of up to you, but there are some guidelines. They should have been in that.
Guidelines. Rules are meant to be broken.
I'm willing to consider it. Right now, my biggest enemy is how much time I have. So I don't want to say yes, but let me know. Send me the guidelines. Let me know what you guys are thinking, and I will consider it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Detail.
They are at the bottom of that debate rules slideshow, and that's publicly available under the About section on our channel.
Roger that. Well, all right. I have to go, guys. Thank you so much.
Benjamin. Thanks for your time.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.
And until next time.
See you.
And God bless.